recording. Don't worry, you can pick your nose. It doesn't record your faces. It just records my screen. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. The way it's going to work is I'm going to go over what you need to know your very first year as a robotics coach after receiving our grant to be successful your very first year. We also know that this year is going to look very, very different than what it normally looks like. So we are going to cover that and discuss that. And I'm going to go over what the kind of robot grant requirements, we've kind of reduced those requirements a little bit to make it more accessible and easier to achieve this year. And then around 10:30 or so, we're going to do a breakout room where all the IQ people, so elementary and middle, are going to go and stay in this room, and all the BRC high school people are going to break out and go with Randy Decker from REC. And so that's something that's new. So all the training, all of the how to be a coach is relevant for elementary, middle, and high school. But then once we reveal the game, which is the really fun part of how to score points with your robot, the IQ people learn one game, and the BRC people or high school people learn a second game, a different game. And that's what Randy will teach you all. So we're all going to be in this together in the morning, and then we're going to break up into smaller group sessions. So let me collect myself. I'm trying to learn. I'm really struggling this morning, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the share screen button. I don't know why I can't. There it is. Share screen. And there is my PowerPoint. All right, so I'm going to keep my video cam up. You don't have to keep your video cam up anymore. It's your call if you want. In case you guys need to, like I said, pick your nose or something, you might want to turn it off as I itch my nose. All right, so introduction to me, and I'm just I have a PowerPoint slide. If you want to follow along on this PowerPoint slide, if you go to our website, techpointyouth.org, and go to Robotics, Robot Resources, this entire PowerPoint that I'm going over is already on our website. At the very bottom page, under TechPoint Foundation for Youth or techpointyouth.org, Robot Resource, bottom of the page, this whole PowerPoint's on there. And Randy's, the one he'll go over, is on there as well. So I'm George Keltner. This is my first week as the title of President and CEO. Normally I'm referred to as the robot guy, but now I have a promotion and I'm president and CEO, so I'm very excited and maybe bragging a little bit, but I'm very excited of the new title. But I'm overseeing everything that we do for the foundation, from the fundraising side, supporting teachers on the robotics side, and we have a variety of different programs. It's not just robotics. We do mentorship based, where we pair up mentors with classrooms, like science teacher or scientists with science classrooms. We get engineers and Project Lead the Way classrooms, and we get computer scientists and programmers in CS classrooms. So we do a mentorship program. We have coder dojos, which are coding clubs all over the state. We do teacher grants, where we give out, if we have the money, we give out up to $500 of STEM dollars that you can spend on your classroom, kind of no questions asked, however you want to use it. So we have a variety of different things, and then I'll be overseeing all that with kind of my number two, Bree, who right now is titled the Director of Program Operations. She is on this call, so if you have questions as I'm talking, please don't unmute yourself, because again, that might become a little annoying with 30 different people. There's a chat feature. Bree will be monitoring the chat feature, so you can ask questions while I'm talking. Bree knows as much as I know. And Randy's in there too, so Randy can also answer questions. But when you communicate in the robot grant, that's Bree talking. So when her title at the bottom says the robot team, because occasionally I'll go in there, but she's kind of behind the scenes. She's the one that awarded you the grant. She's the one that has been communicating with you. So if you guys have questions throughout the year, that probably will be going to Bree. And then our third team member is Andy Fulton, volunteer and event coordinator. He is on vacation right now, so he is not here, but he helps with the volunteers and events that we have. Our biggest event is the state championship that we host for the robotics teams. Last year was at the Lucas Oil Stadium. This year we're still trying to figure out where it might be. Might be at the convention center. Maybe it'll be at Lucas Oil Stadium, or we might not even have it. Who knows? We'll find out. All right. Main objectives of today. I want to just kind of say this in the very, very beginning. Everyone, a lot of people think that robot training is really about how to build your robot. And I'm here to tell you right out of the gate, that's only going to be one small portion of it. So some of you, most of you have received your robot kit in the mail. Bree asked probably for your home address to go there, so in case it didn't show up to a closed school. So most of you got it. If you didn't get it, that's okay. It's on the way. Bree ordered it for you, so be patient. We will cover, Randy and I will cover what's in the contents of that box at the end of the training today, and it's only going to be like 30 to 45 minutes. It's a short period because what you're going to find out for your first year, you need your kids to know how to use the robot, not you. So this training is really about building confidence to show you that you can do this and that I'm here, Bree's here, and Randy is here. And we're going to introduce you to a whole community of other robot enthusiasts or coaches that we are all here to help you succeed. You think of robot competition. For those of you who have cameras on, or you can say in the chat if you don't have your camera on, how many of you have never coached a robotics team? Raise your hand. Never coached a robotics team. Or you can say in the chat, I've never coached a robotics team. Okay, most of us. How many of you are completely nervous and scared of what you're about to get involved in? Pretty common. You know, you're like, first off, you're nervous and confused on what's even going to happen this school year. And then either you applied for the grant or your principal forced you to apply for the grant or applied for it and gave it to you, said, hey, guess what? This is going to be a crazy year and you're going to be the robotics coach. Congratulations. So I know some of you fell in that category. We're here to just kind of go over, here's the bare necessity of what you need to survive your first year. And I say survive, it's you need to form a team and go to a competition, but we know this year that might not be possible. So we just want to show you, like, what would you need in a normal circumstances, what would you need to survive? And then in this environment coming up, what do you need to know to be successful? All right. So I'm going to just, because I know a lot of people have questions about the grant, there's 9 things that all of you need to do. You've already done 3 of them without knowing. One is you need to be a 1st through 12th grade coach or teacher. You've already done that. Great. Your school doesn't already have a VEX robotics team. Great. You've already gotten the grant. So if you had a VEX team, don't tell us. We already gave you the grant. So you got the second one taken care of. You need to go to a 4 to 8 hour training session. Today's training is only 3 hours, but we gave you homework and we'll give you some follow-up supplemental things. So that'll equal about 4 to 8 hours. I'm going to give you, or Bree's going to send you a certificate for your PGP points to make sure that you're a teacher forever. So we'll be sending you a PGP points that says you went through our professional development. So that will be taken care of today. And then I highlighted these in red because one of the requirements is that you assemble a team of 3 or more students. In a normal given circumstance, all of you will be would easily be able to check this box because you're going to struggle reducing the number of students on your team. We say a team for elementary to high school should be about 6 to 8 students. It'll be hard for you to keep it down that low. Most of you are going to have 15, 20 kids interested in the robotics team. You might have to buy a second kit. But for this year, and I need you to all to listen for these next 2, 4, and 5. For this year, we know you might not be able to start a team and you might not be able to go to competition. Now, RAC has provided some online resources or online challenges you can do safely at home without a robot. There might be some virtual challenges that they might introduce where you can virtually submit code. They have a new VR code simulator where you can code online and simulate your robot going through the steps. So RAC is trying to solve this problem as well. There's over 60 countries in the world that are also involved in VEX robotics. So RAC is being very accommodated and try to solve these problems. We're all in the same boat here. So I want to make this message early and so that you hear it that I don't ever want you to feel like we are requiring you to do something that is not safe for students. So in your school, if you cannot meet physically with your kids and form a team, don't do it. If you cannot travel to go to a competition this year, and competitions start in around November timeframe and go all the way till February, then don't do it. That's okay. So I'm just going to throw that out there, is that you don't have to go and do any of these things. 6, 7, 8, and 9. We ask that you encourage other schools in your district to apply for the grant. Do this with other teachers. Be clueless this year with other teachers in your district. So if you're a middle school, recruit the elementary and high schools. If you're a high school, recruit the elementary and middle schools, and so forth. Recruit other schools in your district to apply for our grant. I think we have like 120 more grants to hand out. Bree has already handed out close to 70 maybe. So we have a lot of grants to still hand out. So please encourage others to apply. If normal circumstances, we get to have a season, we ask that you all get robot jerseys or t-shirts for your team members. And we just ask that you put our logo on the back, REC's logo, and then there's two others, DOE and Guggenheim Life and Annuity. Those are our largest two supporters. And we'll send you a packet of logos to add. You'll want to include other donors or sponsors or your school logo and things like that. We want you to do this for 2 years. This is where an asterisk is going to fall, because if this year you can't form a team or go to a competition, your 2-year clock is going to start next year. Okay, so we want to have a team and compete for at least 2 years. If you can't do it this year, that's where we're gonna say, hey, we'll be flexible, but you need to be flexible with us. We want you to do that for the next 2 years. Now, I know some of you in 2 years might not be teachers. You might become principals. You might move on to another career or profession. We just ask that your team stays with your school, though. So you'll have to find another gullible teacher to take on the responsibility. And last thing, we'll be sending a pre and post survey. The pre-survey, we're going to have to update Bree to include, did you form a team this year? Are you going to be able to go to a competition? But we're also asking your students, what is their knowledge and background of computer science and technology and engineering? And then we're going to measure that at the end of the year to say, do you know more about computer science? Do you know more about engineering and technology? So it's a pre and post survey. And I'll tell you this, DOE and Guggenheim has given us money to give to you. We wish it was more, but it's not. A $100 gift card will go to you when you complete the pre and post survey. So we'll give you $50 when you do the pre-survey, you and your kids, and we'll give you $50 when you do the post survey. So it's $100. It's an Amazon gift card. It's buy whatever you want with $100. I wish it was like $1,000, because you all deserve $1,000, just like a normal head coach of an athletic team. But we got to start somewhere. So at least it's something. I know it's small, but there will be money coming your way if you complete number 9. All right, you've got 2 homework assignments today. It's very easy. Raise your hand. How many of you have Facebook? Or in the chat, how many of you are on Facebook? I'm literally going to ask you to go onto Facebook right now. So I'm going to pull up my Facebook account. And I want you to go to, type at the top, TPF4Y, TechPoint Foundation for You, TPF4Y Robots. And it's going to take you to, ooh, my internet's really sluggish. Come on now. It's going to take you to this page right here. This is our robot page where we make posts all day long, all week long about various things that you can take advantage of. We put grants out there. We put events, webinars, training sessions, resources, money, whatever. So follow us on TechPoint, TPF4Y Robots. And then we have 2 private groups. And that's the next thing. For those of you on Facebook and those of you that are on this page right now, there is we call it Coach's Corner. And you can see, hot topic right here. Our district isn't going to allow us to do anything until spring. What does this mean for everyone else? People are already talking about what this year will look like and offering suggestions. And talking about the town hall that REC had. There's a lot of content on here about, and these are all Indiana VEX IQ coaches. So this is elementary and middle. We have one for high school. This is all for coaches to get to ask those silly, dumb, embarrassing questions. Here's where you ask them. And there's other coaches that are just like you helping answer them, because everyone started somewhere. Okay. And then for high school, we have one. It's called Coach's Corner VEX VRC. So if you're a high school coach, this is where to be. I'll tell you right now, this one is just created like a week or two ago, so there's not a lot of content on here. I think the only post is that we updated our banner. So start asking those questions on here and generating. We only have 23 members where the other has like 900. So anyway, I'll go in and accept these coaching requests right now. It looks like it's going to take too long. There you go, Kevin. There you go, Alex. There you go, Andrea. Oh, geez, you guys are actually following through on the homework assignment. We have a lot of people that don't even listen to me. Can you believe that? People not listening to me. All right, so let me go back to the, oh, look at that. I'll just approve all of those. Thanks, Mark and Justin, and I didn't see who else was on there, sorry. Second assignment, if you have not received, I think Bree sent out an email this morning reminding you of the webinar. If you are not receiving our emails, I'm telling you, they're going to the email address that you provided to us. Bree does not make mistakes. She's never made a mistake that I'm aware of ever. So it's most likely your school firewall if you gave us your school email address. So email your IT department saying robotgrant@techpointyouth.org is sending me emails. I'm not getting them, and hopefully they can remove the restriction of blocking us. So you won't get many emails from us, but occasionally we will give you updates or, hey, don't forget about this type of thing. We actually don't like sending a lot of emails, and I know you don't like getting a lot of emails, so we won't bother you too much. All right. Are there any questions before I start diving in the real content? Any questions? Nope, we're going to dive in. All right. That said, Randy gave me the analogy that today's training is like drinking from a fire hose. We're going to be spitting out a lot of information, and you're only going to be able to digest so much of it. So for one, this training is recorded. I hit the record button. So if you need to go back and catch on something, I'm going to record it. Randy's is going to be recorded for those high school VRC coaches. So you can always go back and check it out. You might have to revisit this in October or September when you start your team. You might have to revisit it next year because you never got to start a team this year. So it is available. You can always go back. That doesn't mean I need you or want you to just zone out now and say, I'll just check out the recording, because I need you to engage in the conversations we're having. Post in the chat when I ask questions, and ask questions as I go along. So here we go. Buckle up. There are 3 groups that will be involved in helping support you throughout the year. One is VEX, and everyone calls this the VEX competition, but VEX is actually the group that sells the product. So if you got a kit of parts in the mail, whether that's IQ or VRC, that is the sales like Lego. You can go on VEX's website, you can buy more parts. REC makes the game. So it's actually more of an REC competition, not a VEX competition, but a lot of people know VEX. REC, that's who Randy works for. They make a new game every year. They regulate and make the rules of the competition. And when you registered your team for your homework, that registration came through REC. And when you register for an event, that'll go for REC. Anyone that says you're having audio cut in and out, there's a phone number that you can call in as well. Bree could probably post it in the chat. You could call and just listen in and view if you'd like. So that's an option for you. And then we are just the organization that gave you the grant. We don't make the product. We don't make money off of selling the product. We don't make the game. We don't make the rules. So when you have a problem with the battery not charging, that's VEX problem. If there's a rule or a competition you want to go to, that's an REC problem, okay? We are only here to help support you as a coach, to provide the training that you're going through right now, and we'll have other workshops that you can join later on. And then we hand out grants. So there might be a girl power grant coming along the pipeline where if you have a second girls only team or 50% or more of girls, you can get a second robot kit. And we provide those types of grants. And that one's in partnership with REC. So we have those opportunities through grants. So VEX is parts, REC is the game and competitions. We are just the grant provider, okay? You'll probably email the wrong person. So if you email us about parts, we're just going to forward you over to VEX. If you email Randy about the grant, he's going to forward you on to us. It's not that we don't want to answer your question. It's just that we each three do different things. And Randy, for those of you that'll be in the VRC VEX high school session, you guys will get an opportunity to meet and talk with Randy. He will be a regional support manager. So if you guys are having problems registering, Randy will be able to help you, okay? So you can email Randy. Here's his email address. Here's his phone number. If you guys have problems registering a second or third or fourth team, Randy can help you with that. So that is his information. And he's a former teacher from Warren Central. He's been involved in robotics for a number of years. He was actually, when I was a high school teacher, he was a competitor of mine. But in robotics, we'll notice, you'll hear the theme, that it's a friendly competition. At times. It should be, though. This is an illustration to show you the difference between IQ and VRC. So for those of you that are elementary and middle, you got a kit of parts that looks like the one on the left, which is VEX IQ. If you are VRC high school, you got a kit of parts that looks like the one on the right, which is metal. These look like metal erector sets with nuts and bolts, powerful motors, remote control. These are plastic snap together pieces, much more robust than Lego. So the problem with Lego is if you build something, you drop it on the floor, it shatters into a million pieces. VEX, you could drop that robot on the floor. I'm not going to say it's not going to break, but I bet only like 2 or 3 things would fall apart because they have these little rivet connectors that hold things together, and they're much stronger than kind of the little fittings on Legos. IQ is for elementary and middle. VRC is middle, high school, and college. So middle school, some people ask at middle school and say, well, can I do VRC in middle school? And we're like, you could, but our grant is only for IQ. Because of the cost, you'll see there's a big cost difference. It's $1,000 for this kit. It's $379 for the plastic kit. Also, for first-year coaches in middle school and those kids that are doing robotics for the first year, IQ is much easier for an entry level than VRC. Okay. All right, this is a seasonal calendar that applies to all the way from elementary to high school. So it's all different grade levels that this calendar will apply. August will be crazy for all of us, right? We're not sure. Some of us are going back to school. Some of us are doing e-learning. Some of our schools haven't made a decision. Some of you postponed. So August, just try to figure out how to get back in the swing of things for our students. September, again, this is a typical year that September would work. We don't know what it's going to be like this year, but in September is when we start thinking about the robot season. So that's when we're starting to have a call out, forming our team, having maybe our first practice, figuring out what our schedule for the year will be. That September is kind of our kickoff time. So usually in a normal year, you have a month to get ready as a classroom teacher, and then September, you start thinking about your extracurricular team. October in a normal given year, and Randy's been using the analogy that this will be, he has been calling it a Gumby year because Gumby's flexible. And yesterday on a conference call, he even had a Gumby figurine that he held up on the camera. So it is a flexible year. In a typical year, October is when you start signing up for competitions. So you want to sign up for a competition early so you get your team reserved. I would tell you that would be the case as well this year. You want to sign up early, and the reason why you'd want to sign up early is because I'm afraid, not afraid, I don't know if that's the right word. What will most likely happen this year is you're going to have less teams at competitions if we can have competitions. So in a normal competition, you might have 30, 40 teams. This year, it might be like 10 or 20 teams. So it'll be a reduced number to reduce the number of students all in a gymnasium at the same time. And they're going to look different. The competitions, I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but it might be no spectators, just the drivers, just the coach and driver. So it might be just 3 people show up at a competition versus an entire team of 10 kids and 20 parent spectators all screaming, shouting. That might not happen. Might be like an NBA basketball game. If you haven't seen what those look like now with the fake crowd screaming in the background, it's just players on the court. So anyway, that's October. November is when the season competitions typically start. So that would be the earliest anyone should probably start competing is in November, December. And you're going to hear me say in a normal season, you want to sign up to go to 2 competitions because the first year coaches, your first competition, I know this is being recorded, so I don't mean to use this foul language, but your first competition, you're going to suck. You're going to get beat up. Your robot, not you. You're not going to get bullied by anyone. Your robot is going to get beat up. It's not going to do well. It's not going to score a lot of points. It's like your practice competition. Your second competition is when you start figuring things out and you start figuring out how a competition works. So in a normal year, you try to do one in the before winter break and another one after winter break. But this year is going to look a little different. So we'll just all have to be flexible. January, February is the end of the season, and this year's state is probably going to be that last weekend in February, which is my birthday, February 27th. Anyone wants to remember that? But the state will be on the last weekend of February. We have currently the convention center being held for that last weekend, but we don't know what happens to Lucas Oil with their calendar and schedule of the events. We don't know what's going to happen with the convention center, so I think we're not penciled in, we're at least penned in, but what I'm finding out is that for whatever reason, the NFL and the NCAA have more power than robotics, and I hope we don't get bumped. We'll be sending out the post survey around March, and then in April is the World Championship. This year it's in Dallas. I don't even know if we'll be able to travel to Dallas, but maybe there'll be a vaccine by then. Maybe everything will be back to normal and safe, and we'll be all going to Dallas your first year. And it is not unlikely your first year team might be able to actually attend the World Championship. That happens every year. And then May happens, and it's summertime, and we're like, wow, that was a great year. It's not as bad as I thought. I'm being positive here. All right, so that's the calendar. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post in the chat. Bree is able to help out. All right, today is divided up in 5 sections. We will all be together in section 1 and 2, and then we'll break out. I'll stay with the IQ, like I said earlier, and I'll go over the game reveal. Randy will cover his game, which is the VRC game, and the robot competition overview and robot kits. So I'm going to try to get done here by 10:30, where we'll have our breakout session. We'll take a 5-minute break, breakout sessions, and then Randy will take his group from 10:30 to noon, and I'll take my group 10:30 to noon. So that's the agenda. So the first thing we're going to cover is what is robotics and why does it matter? So the whole reason why we do this training is ultimately, instead of just handing you a robot kit and saying, go figure this out, I'm trying to get you in the mindset of understanding why is this impacting students. And you will hear me say and quote this, that robotics is one of the best things we can provide our students in school because you're going to learn why that is. So I will continue to say that robotics is one of the best things that we can provide our students, but I need you guys all to learn that and understand that and believe that, because robotics is not about scoring points and winning a bunch of trophies. As much fun as that is, that's not why we do this. So we're going to spend some time talking about that before we dive in to the other things. So robotics is so much fun. Raise your hand and put in the chat, how many of you have been to a robot competition? In the chat, say, yes, I have, or raise your hand. How many of you have been to a robot competition? Yes, I have. Yes, oh, have. I know what you meant, Margaret. Yes, perfect. Yes, I have. All right. For those of you who haven't, that's okay. That's what that video highlighting what a robot competition looks like. Robot competitions are so much fun. And the whole robotics challenge that REC Foundation puts on is just a brilliant idea. Is you give kids a problem, you give them parts that they're familiar with, Lego snaps together, you give kids a pile of Legos, they know how to build and put something together. You give them VEX IQ parts, they're going to learn how to snap and put these together to solve a problem. The problem is the game. Score more points than your opponent. So every year there's a new game, so they're going to have to build a different robot to play a different game, whether they're picking up balls or picking up cubes or picking up rings. The game pieces change, the scoring ways change, the hoppers change. So the top, this is IQ. It's a plastic snap together field, snap together pieces, and then the bottom and the field for IQ is smaller. This year is actually going to be bigger. It's 8 by 6 feet, where high school's 12 foot by 12 foot, much bigger. And these are bigger parts. They're metal parts, bigger robot. This robot's about the size of a microwave. This robot's about the size of a large toaster oven. So different sized robots, different types of games. But this is what makes this so fun, because kids have to solve a problem. They have to figure out how to put things together. They're going to learn how to overcome failure, which is a good thing. Failing is good if they learn from it and overcome failure. And then they have to meet a deadline because they have to be done before they go to their first competition. And the competition's the test. How fun of a test is that? You get to travel to another school and compete and show off what you did against other schools. So the competition idea in robotics competition, that's why I think robotics is just so awesome, is that it's so multifaceted. So let's dive in. In the chat, what are the careers that your students right now want to grow up and become? So last year, if you were asked your classrooms, they grow up and they want to be what? Doctors, Becky said. They want to grow up and they want to be, in the chat, tell me what your kids want to be. I'm not moving on until I get 5 answers. Maybe my chat's froze, but I have, oh, naval engineer, engineer. Ooh, we've got a lot of smart. That's great. One more. YouTube channel. Yep, YouTubers. Ooh, robot design. Athletes, beautician, pro athletes. So I would say usually the common response is YouTubers, video gamers, and athletes. It's because that's what they see on TV. That's what they see or that they can do. But what they might not know is that they can become engineers. And a lot of you already said engineers. And they're going to learn about what engineering is. They're going to be engineers themselves this season. Here's the next question. Who do we idolize? Who do our students want to grow up and become? What are the names right now? The students say, I want to grow up and be like, they don't say Mike anymore because they probably don't even know Michael Jordan. They want to grow up and be like my dad, athletes. Are there any names of athletes or names of professionals that people want to grow up and become? They want to grow up and be LeBron. Yep, LeBron. Okay, so I'm going to show you 6 pictures. And in the chat, rapid fire, it's trivia. John Cena. Tell me who these 6 people are. Here we go. Ready? Who is this? First person wins. Jennifer wins. Peyton Manning. Next one. Who is this? Becky wins. Michael Jordan. MJ. Who's this? Crybaby LeBron. So we knew those 3. That was easy. All right. And I bet all of you knew those. You just weren't as fast typer as some of those people. All right. Who's this woman? Crickets. I bet one person, someone's got to know who this is. Uh-oh. There we go, Lauren. But this is proving my point, and I'm not picking on you guys because I literally didn't know who she was. I made this presentation to prove a point. What did Ada Lovelace, who was she? What'd she do? Lauren, programming. Lauren, you are correct in a way. She is known as the kind of founder of what's called the algorithm. She was a mathematician. She created the algorithm, which is kind of a foundational principle in programming. They didn't have computers around when she was a mathematician. But she is a programmer. She's known as a programmer. And a lot of us, we use programming softwares every day, but we don't know who she is. Dawn, you could go to our robot resource page and scroll to the bottom, follow along in the PowerPoint with me if you're listening on your phone now with your audio issues. And I just solved, hopefully, your 2 problems. Who are these 2 dudes? In the chat, tell me who these 2 dudes are. Maybe your brothers. Do they look like me? I don't know if that's a compliment. Becky, it felt like you. Anyway. Anyone? I'll give you their names. Does this help? Does anyone tell me who these people? Oh, Bree, you stop it. No one. These are the founders of Google, guys. Like, Google that's taking over the world. And we don't know who they are. I didn't know what these 2 actually. I actually heard the gentleman on the left. I heard him speak at a first robotics competition. He's very boring. I'm sure he's very smart, obviously. But anyway, this guy's becoming more popular. Who is this? Nice job, Don. You were right. They started Google. Who is this guy? And what has he done? Justin, Tesla. What has he done? He is known for AC, alternating current. Kevin, you got it. And a lot of people say DC. He's known for alternating current. And in a roundabout way, this is according to Wikipedia, so I don't know how accurate it is, but I've seen it in other places. He created a remote control radio frequency sailboat that he could steer, a little rudder, and documented in his journal that he would one day like to create a human remote control device, like you got it, robot. So in a roundabout way, he created the first robot. He didn't actually get to build it, but he documented. So first woman, she was a programmer. How about that, right? Ada Lovelace, we didn't know her name. Next 2 gentlemen, they created Google. None of us knew who that was. Dawn thought maybe Google. Good guess, Dawn, or maybe she knew. And then Tesla, a lot of us think of Tesla as a car, but he created so many brilliant inventions that we use. For example, alternating current. I'm plugged my computer into the outlet right now. I wouldn't be able to have power in this house if it wasn't for alternating current. We use these every single day, and we don't know who those people are. We know Peyton Manning, best quarterback of all time. We know Michael Jordan, best basketball player of all time. We know LeBron James, the biggest crybaby of all time. But and I get to say it because I have the microphone, so sorry if I offended any of you LeBron fans. He is the very good basketball player, but just not as good as Michael Jordan. Anyway, we know those first 3 because we see it on TV. It's glamorized. It's fun to watch at a competition. It's not that exciting to watch a programmer type code, but code changes our lives. It impacts our lives every day. We use it, rely on it. Google, whether we like it or not, impacts our lives. And inventors and engineers change our lives. They help our lives for the better. They change society. And so the whole point and purpose of this is that's what robotics does, is it glamorizes problem solving and thinking and working together as a team and solving problems and overcoming obstacles and failure. It's a way to actually see ingenuity that students created something and put it in front of a crowd and give out trophies. So robotics is glamorizing the important things in life. And that's why robotics is important and it's so helpful for our students. A lot of people ask, what kind of students does robotics attract? Well, this is a loaded question because there's not a good answer, but I'm going to break it down for you from my experiences. So I coached, let me back up. I was on a first robotics team my senior year in high school because my mom made me. It inspired me to go to Purdue, the best school in the world, to study electrical engineering. And then at Purdue, I learned that I like working with kids, but I like electrical engineering. So I became a technology education teacher, just like Randy. And I taught this similar class called digital electronics like Randy, and also become a robotics coach. So I did first robotics as a high school senior. When I was in college, I did first Lego League, and I was a mentor. Then in high school, I was at Carmel High School, and I was the robotics high school coach there. And I worked with a lot of different students. The size of our robots were the size of a washing machine. Our annual budget was about $60,000 a year, and I had about 120 students on my team. We're talking huge robot, huge team, big budgets. You guys are dealing with a $300 robot that fits in the palm of your hand if you wanted it to, and your annual budget, a couple $100. Unless you get uber competitive with 5 or 6 teams, now you might be talking, you might need $1,000 or two. Okay, so what types of robotics, and so where I'm going with this is I've worked with a variety of different types of students, and there's not one answer that fits all for your robotics team, but I'm going to share my experiences with you. Robotics is great for students that are wanting to go into engineering or computer science or are bound to go into some sort of tech field. But it's also great for the students that hate school, that are unattached from your class, that don't have an interest in what you're talking about in school. They put their head down, they sleep, they don't take notes, they don't turn in their homework, they don't like to do anything in your class. This is a great program for those students because it shows them and it connects what you learn in the classroom to the real world. Sometimes that's all they need is like, why do I need to learn this? Robotics solves or answers that question a lot. Students that get straight A's. This is great. I mean, the students that are looking for what is, I'm done with the assignment. What's next? I finished the project. What can I do next? Those kids that are always asking for something extra, robotics offers that because you're never going to be done with your robot. You're always going to be able to make it better. And then straight F's, kids that never turn in anything. This is great for them because they can be working with other students that are straight A's on the same team, and they collaborate and work together, and these kids will start to learn about these kids over here, and they get to work together where normally they might not even be in the same class when you start getting to middle school or high school, and they have advanced classes versus the slower classes. I couldn't come up with a PC way of saying that. Struggles socially. Those students that are socially awkward, don't know how to work with each other, that we typically call those engineers or computer programmers. Those are the students that can really benefit with working with other students because they have to learn how to communicate with their peers because you cannot argue and shout and throw a little fit. You have to compromise. You have to learn how to communicate your ideas to others and persuade others why your idea might be better than others. Or the students that never stop talking at all in your class that are too sociable. This would be great for them because there are actually awards strictly on your ability, given strictly on your ability to communicate to the judges at competitions. And the judges will ask you, why did you go this route? Why did you build an arm that has 3 levers on it? Why did you add a tank drive train instead of the wheelbase? And they have to answer those questions. And if they can answer those in a really, concise, clean, using the right vocabulary, really explain the failures and overcoming failures to those judges, they're going to win an award literally for talking. So how about that? And students that hate sports, that might not ever be on a sport in their life because they're not athletic, this is their sport. And then students that love sports. So I'm not answering a question, what types of students to be on a robotics team. I'm allowing you to think about who should be on my robotics team. And don't just think about the students that are all going to be engineers and that are the go-getters, get all A's. Think about those kids on the left side that you could pull up and make a better student, a better person through robotics. I don't suggest having a school-wide call-out. That's what a lot of coaches will tell you. That you'll end up with 120 kids on your team like I did. I never said no to kids, and that was my problem. And I don't teach anymore because that really burnt me out. So I would suggest individually inviting kids or only opening it up to your class or talking to some of your peer teachers to say who could benefit from a robotics team that maybe will never be in a sport or that you need to help like motivate. Those are the students that you should probably try to recruit for your team. And on the coaches corner, there's a lot of discussion on how to recruit and get, some people do applications, some people do interviews, some people do referrals. all sorts of good information on the Coach's Corner. In the chat, what do engineers do? In the chat, tell me what engineers do. What do they make? What do they solve? What do they create? What do they do? Give me some examples. Design and develop. That is correct. What else do they do? My brother makes airplanes. That's awesome. Bridget, that's a good answer. Find solutions problem. Lauren, that's a good answer. Everything that's around you. You're exactly right. Everything you're looking at in your house, an engineer probably was involved at some point. So why I like to put this question and pose it to my kids early on is the answer that I like to say is engineering is everything that you all just listed, but the easy answer is engineers solve problems. So gold star to Bridget and Lauren and Dawn, they solve problems, okay? And why that's important is because your kids are going to drop that robot. It's going to break in a million pieces, even though I just literally told you about 20 minutes ago that they won't break in a million pieces like Legos. But they're going to drop, it's going to break, and they're going to come to you and say, hey, Miss Peterson, can you help fix our robot? And you're going to say, no. Engineers are going to fix that. You need to be an engineer, solve the problem. Miss Peterson, the robot just keeps falling over and over, and it's just not, it doesn't want to stay upright. Every time I lift the arm, it's too heavy and it falls over. Solve the problem, dude. I don't know if you call your kids do, but I guess I've been out of the classroom for a while. Solve the problem. You need to become an engineer. And so that's going to be an underlining theme throughout this season. When your kids struggle, they need to think like engineers and solve the problem. And you're going to run into so many problems. So I really put a lot of the ownership on the kids to figure these things out. Not me. It's not my robot. It's not my team. It's the kids' team. It's the kids' robot. And if they build crap, their competition, you know, they'll have a crap robot. And that's okay. It's their robot. And I'm even going to show an example of a really bad robot here in a little bit and why it's such a great robot. This is kind of my, I don't know, wheel of robotics. It's just the obvious things that stand out is you program your robot. You have electronics on your robot. You mechanically have to build your robot. You'll hopefully get STEM partners to help you, or STEM mentors to help you. And, you know, the kids are going to have to work together as a team. But the things that you might not think about, and I've brought up a few of these already, are those soft skills or 21st century skills like collaboration and problem solving and critically thinking and real world examples or discovery, and then communication. These outside skills are the things that I think can apply to any job or career your kids go into. So if they want to become a doctor, they're going to hopefully learn how to problem solve and think critically. They're going to have to learn how to communicate and collaborate. So it doesn't matter what career you go into. All of you as teachers, think about all the things, how many times you guys have to do this. So these skills can prepare them for the real world, and robotics does all of this. So anyway, that's just my robot wheel of, I don't know, I need to come up with a fun word for it. All right, this is more of a bragging, but you are all part of this brag. Indiana right now has more IQ teams than any other state in the entire country. So boom, we are leading the charge in elementary and middle school robotics teams. That means these little blue dots represent robotics teams. That means if you looked at the number of teams back in 2015 and 16, this was before we were involved in handing out robot grants statewide, there were only 311 teams. And of those, you saw in your homework assignment, a majority of those were started from Mayor Ballard in that video you watched with Mayor Ballard and Randy Decker helping start and kick off a Indianapolis-based initiative for the city of Indianapolis to start robotics teams. That's why they're all concentrating here. But you notice it didn't expand statewide. These coaches had to figure this out on their own. They had to buy the kits on their own. They had to train themselves or kind of figure out, host competitions. But look, there's no one to compete against. It's just you out here on an island. So when we created this initiative, we are all over the state. We're in 90 of 92 counties. We're over 300 school districts. I don't even remember how many cities anymore because it grows so much. We have over 2,000 teams. Now, we don't have more VRC teams yet. California beats us there by a lot. But with our high school coaches now getting into the program, pretty soon we're going to have more robotics teams than any other state in the entire country. So we are a dominant force, and it's all because of you stepping up or because your principals force you to do it. Either way, thank you. And another thing is the competitions. So if you looked at the number of competitions that were here before us, before we grew statewide, there were only about 12 competitions from elementary to high school. And then as we started to expand, Randy and I were like, oh my gosh, we have robot teams all over the state, but we don't have enough competition. So we started to train teachers to host events. And yes, this sounds wild. You could be a first-year coach and host an event. In given circumstances, I would urge and push all of you to say, if you're interested in hosting an event, it's a great way to learn the ropes very quickly, diving in the deep end. This year is going to be a little bit more unique. Events will look very different. I think they're going to be easier to host this year in the sense of logistics. They're going to be more difficult on the sense of safety. So events, I think events will happen this year, just at a different rate. I don't think we're going to be able to pull off 167 events this year. And they're not going to be as accessible. You know, I see a more rural communities possibly having more events than some of the urban dense communities. So I'm not sure how it's all going to shake out, but as Randy said, let's think like Gumby and be flexible here this year. If there's not an event close to your area, this year, I'm sorry. Hopefully next year when things normalize a little bit, there will be more events in your area. So we're just all going to have to be flexible. We cannot freak out and I got to travel an hour to get to the competition. I mean, that might be the reality this year. There might not be that many events near you like there normally are. So let's just keep that in mind. Let's all work together through this. All right, I'm already in the second topic. I only have 30 minutes to make sure I give Randy and myself enough time to reveal the game and open up the kits. So coaching robotics, again, if you guys have any questions, throw it in the chat about what I already covered. But now we're going to go into kind of what you need to know. Oh, someone asked, does a competition cost separately? Randy, if you would tell me the high school fee, but for because Huma is a high school coach, for elementary and middle school, they're about $30 to $40 for a competition. So yes, there is a cost, $30 to $40. The nice thing I would tell you is that money goes to the coach that not to the coach, the team that hosts that event. So the REC Foundation doesn't actually take that money. That money goes to the team. So you're actually fundraising and supporting another team when you do it. High school, Randy, do you want to post in the chat? High school, I think, is like $50 to maybe $70 in that range for an event. I don't really remember. But anyway, it's around that. Deadline to sign up for a host an event. Randy said $55 to $75 for a high school team. Deadlines all depend. I mean, you literally could sign up the week before if there's capacity. So it's all dependent on event by event. It all kind of depends. That's why we say to sign up earlier than later, because there's typically more teams all trying to sign up for the good events, that are closest to them all at the same time. So that's why sometimes those remote events don't fill up as quickly, because people that live in Indianapolis want to sign up for Indianapolis events and they don't want to travel all the way up to, I'll say, like Anderson, Indiana to compete. So anyway, yeah, you want to sign up earlier than later. And all the events have refund policies, and REC Foundation sent out information about what refund policies should be in place for this year. So if you sign up early, which I would suggest you do, I'm sure if the event cannot take place, that event partner would refund you because of safety concerns that you couldn't compete. Or if your school says, no, you can't compete, I'm sure there'll be a refund policy that if you were able to back out, it's usually like back out 2 weeks prior to the event or a week prior to the event, then they'll give you your money back kind of thing. So, but not all, you'll have to just check the refund policies. All right, we're gonna dive into coaching competitions. I'm not going to pick on Randy, but don't worry about the $5 fee. That's a little confusing. He's just saying basically when you pay $35, $5 goes to REC and the $30 goes to the event partners, but don't worry about the $5 fee. Suggestions for game. So for your first year, there is already a pre-built robot that will get you started to play the game. That's for IQ. It's called Rise, and then there's one for VRC, and Randy will show the VRC people what that robot looks like. So they're just like Lego. When you have a book that takes you brick by brick to put things together like that, the same thing for VEX. There's a manual. It's online as a PDF. They'll tell you put this piece with this, and you'll build a robot that can play this year's game. However, you see my second check. Your students need to improve that design. That robot design is just like the basic bare bones. Yeah, you can score some points, but not a lot. And I'll tell you, for IQ, it's really top heavy. Once you pick up, I mean, it has little like wheelie bars, because once you pick up an object, the robot wants to fall over. And so you need to like figure out, your kids need to figure out a way to make it better. That's the beauty about robotics. Every robot should look unique and look different, and you're solving the competition challenge in a different way. So build the basic bot. Yes, do that as a first year team, but that's just the starting point. You need to go beyond that and improve the design. And have the students prototype options. So like if you're looking for an arm, build 3 or 4 different arms off to the side, not on the actual physical robot. Build it off to the side to see, do we like this design? Do we like this arm? Is the pincher better than the grabber? Or do we do a hook system? Have the kids build prototypes off to the side and test. And then, you know, these are snap together parts. So you can pull the arm off and put arm B on and then test it. And then take B off, now put the C on, A, B, C, like 3 different designs or something like that. Try not to have your students start over. A lot of kids will like, oh, this doesn't work. Let's just tear it apart and start over. You're like, no. What specifically does not work? Let's fix that one specific thing. I mean, if you're having a problem, I'm just grabbing a little Bluetooth stereo. If you're having a problem picking up a part, it keeps dropping it, you don't need to take your drivetrain apart, the wheels and gears and everything. You probably need to grab the grabber needs to be fixed. If it keeps dropping, it's the grabber problem, not the wheels. So don't start over. You lose a lot of time with that. And then practice. That should really say practice driving, because these kids will show up to the competition where they've never driven, or they have only limited driving experience, and it's kind of a driver competition. It's like a video game. The kids need to know the joysticks, the layouts, and what does what. We're thinking of building the robots like building the video game. So you can build a great video game, but if you don't know how to play that video game, you're not going to be competitive in an esport world. Man, I did some weird analogies there. All right, how will you measure success? So let's just remove all the safety factors and make sure that all of our kids are safe this year. And we get to go to an event. We get to go to a competition. At the end of the year in May, you'll look back and be like, you know what? I got to form a team. I got to go to an event. I was successful because, in the chat, tell me, why were you successful? How will you measure success this year? And like I said, safety, we can remove that. We're going to make sure our kids are safe. Obviously, that it will be a success. Our kids are all safe. Survived. Yep, Connie is survived. Kids had a great time. Kids will want to join next year. That's huge. Students learned a lot and had fun. Kids learned something fun. Kids experience new things. Find a core group of kids excited about building a program. These are all, that's exactly right. And students were engaged. You had kids involved. I love all of these answers. And what I did not see, and I'm thankful, is working together. Good, Alex. Is my first one right here, is you won a competition, or you got an award, or you got a trophy, or you scored, the top 10. I don't care about any of that stuff. And I'm telling you, I used to say, I'm the director of programs, or I'm director of robotics. And I'm telling you, as the director of robotics, I don't care about that stuff. Now I'm telling you, as the president and CEO of TechPoint Foundation for Youth, which I don't know if holds as much clout because it doesn't have the word robotics in it. But how about this? As the robot guy, I'm telling you, I don't care about trophies or awards or scoring points. And neither should you, especially your first year. And I already said it earlier. I said the word sucks, and I'm sorry, you probably don't like that as a teacher. But you're going to suck your first year. Your robot is going to do poorly. So if you are in last place at the 2 events that you hopefully get to go to this year, that is okay. because someone has to be last place, okay? And I'm just telling you, it's probably going to be you. So if you're not last place this year, consider that a win at a competitive level. But the whole point of robotics and the point of your first year is, yes, it is to survive. Your kids need to have a good time. Your kids want to come back next year. Your kids did not fight. They're going to get in some fights, but they're going to love each other at the end. Your kids are going to, and that's why that competition part's so important, because in your practices, you're going to be running into a wall a lot. Your kids are going to be like, parts are going to fall, tempers are going to flare, pieces are going to fall off, and it's that competition where you get to like showcase it all. So I really hope that you get to go to a competition this year to showcase it, or at the very least, you know, do like a scrimmage with maybe another school. So it's just your robot and another robot, you know, trying it out if you guys can do that. Failing is okay when you learn from your mistakes. A lot of teachers, we say, you know, we don't want kids to fail. We want them to succeed. Robotics is a time where you're going to fail, but you have to overcome that. You know, first time you get involved in programming, if your kids have never programmed before, I encourage it. The programming is so easy. It's drag and drop. It's almost cartoon based. There's a lot of tutorials out there to do it. They're not going to get it to work the first time. They shouldn't get it to work the first time. This is not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This isn't easy to coach, and this isn't easy to participate as a student. So failing is okay. That's what all of the learning is about. And that's going to translate into your classes. I mean, I can't see all of your faces. I guess I can click back over to that screen. But it's like, doesn't it seem late? I can just see Lauren's face. So I'm going to judge by her on my response. Doesn't it seem like kids just give up so much easier nowadays? I feel like the old man going back to like, oh, kids these days. But like, it seems like as soon as they can't get something, they throw a little hissy fit and they just like want to throw it all in. They're done. Well, robotics teaches those kids. Thanks, Lauren, for the confirmation of that. It's robotics teaches these kids to be like, oh, I know how to solve this. Oh, I can do this. I can take on anything. I built a robot. I've programmed before. I've been to a competition and talked to adult judges that are engineers. Like, that is what's so awesome that translates into your classrooms. Okay. Oh, I like that, Justin. Feeling like they belong no matter what their experience or comfort level is. This is going on Justin's point. You are going to be able to take some kids out of their shells and comfort level and show them a world or a skill that they may have never knew they had. Now, that's a good point, Justin. Sorry, I had to pause and reiterate that, because the kids have really kind of discover who they are and what they're capable of doing through robotics. Student run, student built, adult organized. That is how I ran my team. I had a student president that was elected and appointed by their peers, and they were in charge of setting the objectives for the day, the meetings. This might be difficult at the elementary level, but maybe if you're fourth, fifth grade and you had a mature group, you could probably pull this off. But definitely at the middle school, high school, I mean, they picked the agenda, the objectives for the day. I was more of the open. I hated when my kids said this because it made me feel like I didn't do anything. But I was more of a turn on the lights, unlock the door, and open the room up for the kids. I want to say I feel like I did more than just that. But if the kids failed, it was on the kids. Not that I didn't want to be blamed for my robot sucking. It was my fault. But like, if the robot scored 20 points, the kids knew that they built that robot and they scored 20 points, and they should have the pride in the success and failures of their robot. I'm just there to help temper expectations. I'm there to monitor when kids aren't being respectful to one another. I'm there when those kids are like on the brink of tears. Maybe you can let one or tear out, but once they're about to bawl, that's when you like step in and be like, oh, whoa. Okay, guys, we got this. Let's think like engineers. We can solve this. So you're just here to kind of help moderate feelings and emotions. No mom and dad bots. You're gonna go to competitions, and there's two camps here. You're gonna see some robots that are just so magnificent and can do everything. And I'm telling you, there are some teams that kids know how to do it all. They've been doing this for several years, especially at the middle school level. There's kids that have been doing this since second, third, or fourth grade, and now they're in middle school or even high school. Now they're like, I've been doing this for 8 years. So think of someone that's been on a football team for 8 years. They're going to be so much more talented than the ragtag group that just been doing, neighborhood football and joins a team. They're not going to understand how things work. So you're going to go to competition and you're going to see some really advanced robots. That doesn't always mean they're built by adults. Sometimes kids did that. But you will also go to competition just like a science project or science fair, and you see this awesome, crazy contraption. You're like, there's no way that kid made that. Because sometimes mom and dads build those robots, and I hate that. We're really trying to crack down that. RAC Foundation and Randy is really getting involved with those teams and reaching out to say, like, let me see your engineering notebook. Let me hear your kids explain what this did. So you don't need to be the police of that. And you need to talk to your kids about, hey, you're going to see robots out there that are really good. Let's just learn from them, not take that as a negative. And that's another good point that you'll hear me probably repeat is your emotions and feelings are going to trickle down to your kids. So if you go in and be like, oh, these robots are so good and we suck, now you just put down your robot and your kids are going to think you suck. Your robot sucks. The one they created sucks. But if you celebrate that you got 1 point, your kids are going to be proud of that 1 point. If you celebrate that your robot moved at a competition, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you see it? Our robot drove forward. And you're like, deep down, you'd be like, yeah, every robot should be able to drive forward, turn left, and go forward and backwards and right. But like, you need to celebrate the small successes so that they are taking pride in those actions. And then last one, this is left over from when Laura Dodds was our executive director. She was a robotics coach at Sider Elementary Middle School here in IPS in Indianapolis. She said, there's no crying in robots, but that is for students and parents. So, no soccer mom, dads that are screaming from the crowd, telling their kids what to do. That's actually, there's a rule against giving instructions from the audience, which is crazy, right? They're just trying to eliminate to say, put the responsibility on the kids and the coaches prepping before the match, not during the match. Their kids have too much pressure of driving to need to be screamed at by their parents. So they eliminate that as you can't do that. So anyway, those are kind of my 5 coaching ethics. All right, I need to kind of go through this a little bit faster. We only have 15 minutes before we get to the game reveal. So as I told you, Randy and I have been coaching robotics for, wow, Randy, 20 years we've been involved. 21 years I've been involved in robotics. So I don't care if this is your first year or your 21st year. Every year you have a level of stress. Randy says since 2001. Thanks, Randy. I forgot about that. I've been a student since 1999, so I have seniority over Mr. Randy Decker. But I was a student. I wasn't a coach. But anyway, regardless, over the year from before you receive the grant to the end of the year, which will be in May or after your first competition, you're going to have levels of stress. And here it is right here. This is your level of stress. Before you got the grant, I probably should modify this because I think all of you have stress into this upcoming school year. And I hear you. I support you. You guys are going to have a really difficult task ahead of you. But let's just push coach being a teacher aside and just think of robot coaching because this could get really hairy. Is before you applied for the grant, you had no stress. We'll just say that. You're in the summer, sitting by the pool, sipping on margaritas. Then you applied for the grant and Bree gave you the grant and you were like, what the heck did I just get myself into? Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Hopefully by the end of today, you're going to walk away and say, I got this. I know what I need to do. It's going to be a challenge, but I know the bare minimums. Okay, the robot season will start. You're like, this is fun. It's weird. We're wearing masks. We have to separate. We got to have a lot of cleanliness and cleaning the parts. Hopefully that will, we can do that in a safe way. But you're going to say, this is fun. And then you're going to sign up for your first competition, hopefully. And I'm telling you, right before that, you're going to say 4-letter words. You can insert darn or even more severe. I know we have all our own. I see Bridget right now. I bet Bridget has some really foul word. I'm kidding, Bridget. So, there's going to be a 4-letter word in there that you say, oh, shoot. Oh, that's not 4 letters, but, oh, yeah, it is, shoot. And then you're going to say, we don't have any time. We don't have time. And I tell you every year, even though I give this little lecture, I feel like I'm lecturing right now. people call me and say, I'm signed up for a competition and I'm not going to go because we're not ready. And I'll say, why aren't you ready? They're like, we only can pick up like one thing and score 5 points. And I'm like, you can score 5 points, you're going to a competition. Or our arm doesn't work, it only pushes. Does it drive? Yeah, then you're going to a competition. I'm telling you, if your robot can move, you are going to a competition this year, as long as you can safely. Okay? Mother goose. Jeez. Mother goose. I forgot what Bree says. Bree is a mother that has tried to safely cuss around her daughter Julia. I forgot what's the word you always say, Bree? You can put it in the chat. She says it more often. Sugar. Sugar. So what I'm telling you on the stress graph, we all go through this no matter how much experience you have. So when you show up to your first competition, you walk in the door, you're gonna be like, what did I just get myself into? This is crazy. There's so much going on. It's overwhelming. There's a practice field, there's pits, there's a competition, there's skills field, there's check-in, there's inspection, there's other teams that are so crazy. And our robot is this tiny little box, and there's these people that can expand into huge transformers. That's okay, because I'm telling you, once you get done with your first competition, it will be fun. You have to, like, this is me telling you, get past the fear and anxiety of going to your first competition, because once you do that, you're going to be hooked. And that's when the competition starts kicking in. That's when those of you, how many of you out there are competitive? You like winning. You like beating your spouse at trivia, or different, who can fold the laundry the best, or doing fantasy football, like you're just competitive, right? You're going to have to temper those expectations, like I said, because your first competition, you're not going to be great, but then you're going to start becoming competitive after your first one. You're going to say, how can we do better? That's that engineering mentality. So don't confuse that of competitive, cutthroat, let's be the best, versus how can we be better? Okay, those are two separate things. Scoring more points and being the best versus how can we be better. Encourage your kids to improve their robot. You can actually improve your robot during competitions if you do it too dramatically. I'm trying to put drastic and dramatic together. But if what, Bree? Drastically. Thank you. If you do it too drastically, then you'll have to be re-inspected. But you can modify and tweak your robot during competitions on the fly, and you get 8 matches. At VRC, you'll get probably 6 matches. But you can do it between matches and between events, so you can improve your robot. So anyway, that's the fun part of it all, is trying to become better, improving and scoring more points than you did the last time. But remember, it's just not all about points, it's not all about trophies. And then this is the fun part. After your first year, you'll all be robot masters. And I think Bree told us we handed out close to 1,000 grants over the last 4 years. There's over 2,000 teams in Indiana. So there's everyone, all 2,000 of those teams all started where you are right now. Clueless, naive, nervous, scared, a team that just doesn't score a lot of points. Like, everyone started there. But it takes a full year, in my opinion, to figure out how coaching a robotics team works. So, all right, I think we're almost done here. I've got some resources, and then we're going to split up. So we're almost done, 9 minutes. Where to get help? You'll notice Bree and I are number 9 on this list. We're the last resort, and Randy is actually the second to last between him and VEX. I think, Randy, I told you I was going to combine you and VEX, and I forgot to do that. But REC's website has a lot of useful information. Coach's Corner is a great resource for you to ask questions, but look through the post before you ask a question. I bet there's someone that's already asked it. And you can always do a search at the top. If you have a question about engineering notebooks, type engineering notebooks. If you have a question about competition, type questions or competitions, and there's probably people that have already asked those questions. And then we have a robot resource page where I told you these PowerPoints are. You can go to the robot resource page on our website, and it kind of collects all of the, I would say, important documents, the need to know things all on one page. Get a helper. I see a few of you are sitting in a room with a second person. that should be your coach. Your assistant coach, you should be having a second helper. For those of you that are alone, see if you can recruit another teacher. See if you can recruit your spouse. If you have a middle school or high school son or daughter, pull them in. If you're in elementary, go to the middle school and high schools and have them help you. If you're in middle school, go to the high school and have them help you. If you're a high school, go to a local college or the physics department or engineering department if you're not, or the tech ed department if you're not already in that, and grab a teacher from them to help you, or talk to your parents that know how to build things to help you. So you need a second helper, because that's where you'll start getting into the burnout. And that's where I say going to the neighboring schools and asking them to help you. If you have questions about registration competitions, talk to Randy. If you have problems with your parts, like your robot battery isn't charging or your motor breaks, you need to contact VEX. And there's the number, there's the email. And then if you have anything about grants or coaching, you can call me or you can email Robot Grant. Okay. Additional resources. We just had and finished up this week our advanced coaches training. So this is only for IQ. I'm sorry, VRC next year we'll have an IQ and VRC advanced training. I don't recommend this usually to anybody that is coaching for their first year, but I would tell you there's a few topics like the game and building a robot where the coaches go through every single step in the manual on what it means for you for this year and scoring and what you can and cannot do. And it will go in much more depth than I will go in today. And there's a part where there's a coach that takes the RiseBot, the basic robot, and shows you how he would build and improve the robot. And he takes you step by step through that process. That's just something I might recommend you looking into for IQ coaches. VRC, I don't have any videos like that for you yet, but if you look at the educator certificate, this is for IQ and VRC coaches. There is a called VEX kind of educator certificate that you can go through that goes over training similar to what you're going through today, but it also goes a lot more in depth on like gear ratios and programming your robot and leverage or levers and simple machines to help you with building. So anyway, that's a resource for all of you that love to learn more. This is just a sample schedule that Randy and I put together for any coach that wants to follow. What do I do my first practice? Here's what I do in my first 10 practices, and you can follow this or not follow it. First one, no robot. I just go over the game and how to score points so the kids learn. Second one, I bring the robot in, and for the next 2 or 3 practices, we just build the basic robot. We then drive the basic robot and figure out what works and what doesn't. The following meeting, which if you did 3, that would be the 5th, you talk about how do we want to play the game, not the robot, not build the robot. How do we want to play the game? So where's the most amount of points we can get? A lot of kids want to do all the points. You don't have to do all the points your first year. If you can do just like 2 things well, like maybe we're good at pushing and we're good at picking. That's it. We can't stack to the 3rd level, or we can stack 2 cubes but not 3 or 4 cubes, or whatever it might be for your game. Just talk about the game strategy. How do you want to play the game? And you all only have, IQ only has 1 minute, VRC only has 2 minutes to score points. So you can't do everything in a short period of time. And then in meeting 6, you talk about how do you want to design your robot to play that game. And then 7 is building appendages. Appendages are not drive-based. Appendages are like arms or grabbers or collection devices. And then your next meetings are just testing and redesigning. Driving it, what works, what doesn't, redesigning it. Driving what doesn't work, let's redesign it. And that's all you're doing. So I'm not going to go any further than that. This is just kind of a sample. You kind of figure out what works best for you. You can even, if safely you can do this, you can even go in and sit on another coach's practice before you get started. So think about that as well. And this is just what I call the design process. You guys might have heard of this. If you're tech ed teachers, you definitely have used this or seen this before. But this is just kind of showing that your thinking or thought, your learning and design never stops. You're always brainstorming, prototyping, testing, redesigning, and you improve. And as soon as you're done with redesigning, and you're going to repeat to improve it, how can we always make this better? All right. I only have 3 minutes and I'm almost done. Okay. This is what I suggest for all of you. Most of you will be the head coach. I think you need an assistant coach here. Otherwise, you'll get burnt out. This is what the most commonly structure of a team is, just being by yourself. You don't want to be by yourself. That's what I did for 10 years, and that's why I'm not teaching anymore. That's not the main reason, but it is exhausting trying to do everything on your own. So have a support helper that's in charge of something specific. They might be in charge of signing up for events, getting permission slips, getting a bus set up, getting the parents informed. Maybe that's their job. It's just competitions. Maybe it's your assistant coach is in charge of the building and programming the robot, and you do all the administrative type of things. You guys figure that out, but you should have a helper. This is more of a high school, larger team. This is what I did for my team. Most smaller teams, if you only have like 4 or 5 kids, I'll show you an example of that. But this is if you had 8 team members. Here's what things you could do. They can be in charge of setting up the field and knowing the rules. That's one person. A prototyper, this is the person that's always coming up with new ideas and designing new ideas. Research and design, YouTube is a huge resource now. So that's looking at what other people are doing on YouTube, because everyone likes to brag about their design. So they put it out on YouTube, but then you can learn from that. You don't pause it and steal and build brick for brick, but you can learn from that. Builder, this is what goes on the final design. Prototyper and builder can sometimes be 2 different people. This is the thought person that designs new ideas. This is the person that builds the final design. Electronics, this is more high school and not really IQ, but you guys will have sensors that you guys can wire and add. And then programmer, all of you should attempt to try to program this year. It's very easy. You literally could just, with one command, drive forward. You could score points just by driving forward this year. So try the programming. And then a pit team, this is more of like the group that cleans, the group that charges batteries, the group that helps support the practices. They take out parts, they clean up parts. And then when you go to an event, they pack up all the stuff, the chargers, the charging stations. They make a banner for like your logo, things like that. And then PR, this is the one, you should all come up with a team name. So I was at Carmel High School Greyhounds. Our team was called the Tech Hounds. Randy was Warren Central. His team was the Digital Goats. So you come up with a crazy, goofy name or a spin-off of your existing logo or mascot. This is a more common. You have a robot build, a robot programming, more of the elements, field design group, and then a PR team. Or honestly, this is probably most common. You have the builders, the programmers, and then everyone else. And this might be the engineering notebook group, the field, things like that. Okay, I've got one story to share with all of you, and then I'm done. I know it's 10:31 now, Randy. I'm really sorry. So we're gonna have to talk extra fast when we do our breakouts. But I want to tell you all. This is my last thing. So high school people, this is my parting words to all of you. The whole purpose, as I said, of this training for all of you first year coaches is we, Bree, Randy, and I get an opportunity to speak with each of you before you go into the world and coach a robotics team. And like I said, if we shipped you the kit, you would all figure out and do your own thing. But the story I'm about to tell you is what I want and hope from every single team. So I told you I'm going to show you an example of a robot that really sucks. This is the robot that really sucks. So this was at a world championship 4 years ago. I was a judge. So you can see me. I'm bending over, asking questions with my little clipboard. I'm asking these 3 kids. There are about 140 teams in the elementary division this year. Of the 140 team, I would say 50 of these robots were identical copies of one another. You went down pit by pit by pit. Same robot, same robot, same robot. They called it the China bot because someone from China built a robot and put the instructions on how to build that robot, and it scored all the points. And then so you'd say, there's a China bot, there's a China bot, there's a China. It was the same robot right down the row. Then I got to this robot, and the objective was there's 40 orange little balls that you had to pick and put into a hopper. Most teams that had the China bot could pick up all 40 balls. They'd have a hopper that literally physically expanded as you added more balls to it. It was like a vacuum cleaner that just sucked up all the balls. Okay. I don't know if you can tell from this next photo, how many balls can this robot hold? In the chat, how many balls do you think that can hold? 13. 3. The answer is 3. It's one there, and one there. And the only way they can pick them up is if they ran or jammed it into a wall, and the balls would fall into the hopper. But if you jam or shove round balls into a flat wall, the balls go everywhere. So they weren't very successful at it. So when I said this robot sucked, these kids were in last place. They were 140th out of 140th team. But I gave them what's called the Judged Award at the World Championship. And when I didn't get to say their name, but I got to hand them the trophy. When the announcer named Team 246 from Boston, Massachusetts wins the Judged Award, these 3 little kids are screaming, and everyone's like, how in the world did the last place team get the Judged Award? And I'm telling you right now why. These 2 kids are brother and sister. Their team was worked out of the basement of their home. Dad was an accountant, didn't know anything about construction or building or programming or robotics. He's like, I bought the kids a robot, a field, and this is their neighborhood kid, next door neighbor, that would come over to their basement and build this robot. They designed this robot, and I know they designed the robot because they told me every aspect about it. So I'd say, tell me about your robot. They're like, all right, we went on a field trip and we learned about a rack and pinion, which is basically a way where you can take a rotational motor and translate it to linear movement. And we needed to create a robot that could pick up the balls. And we learned at that field trip that you could pick up something linear up and down if you wanted to do something with a motor that has an output of rotation. And so we used what we learned from that and translated it to our robot. Well, these 2 kids this is a 2nd grader, and these 2 kids are 3rd graders, telling me about linear and rotational movement. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then he says, then we get to the very top, we couldn't figure out how to rotate the hopper, so we used what's called a crown gear, and the crown gear translates output of a motor and translates it to 90 degrees so that we can rotate the hopper. I mean, these kids are talking to me like they went to the smartest school in the world, Purdue, and they're Purdue engineers, not elementary kids from Boston that don't know anything about engineering. And then the little girl is the programmer and is telling me about the different lines of code that she created to help them kind of autonomously pick up, scoop, go to a certain level, and dump all of this. And this is the driver that told me the strategy and that they used. Worst robot on the entire team, or out of about 140, scored the lowest amount of points, but they made me the most proud because they could tell me everything about the robot. I knew they built it, and look at their smiling faces. They're at Worlds in last place, and they are so excited. So I tell you this story because I have an opportunity to kind of shape your mentality going into this year, if this was normal year, going into this year of saying, why do I want to be coaching a robotics team? And it's because I want you to produce these types of kids that have a positive spirit. They build something that they created and they're proud of, not caring about how many points, what their ranking is, how many trophies they got. That is not what is important. And it should not be important at least until your 3rd or 4th or 5th year. Should you start caring about the trophies and scoring? The first couple of years, you need to build that foundation and culture that robotics is an environment for kids to start thinking and learning and problem solving and working together. Then you can start thinking, how do we take that to the next level of competitiveness in still a polite environment where it's not cutthroat competition? So anyway, that's my kind of pep talk to all of you. I hope all Indiana teams are like this, I mean, we go to Worlds, I honestly do not care how our students perform competitively. I only care about our kids' performance in their ability to communicate to the judges, represent us well in Indiana, communicate amongst themselves, support and help other teams. I don't really care if we are in 1st place or last place at Indiana. So anyway, that's my pep talk. Last 2 slides. Coaching, this is just a slide showing that design is equally but different as driving. You need to drive that robot. The kids, need to drive the robot. Keep it simple, silly. We all know it as KISS, keep it simple, stupid, but we don't want to call our kids stupid, so I say silly. Keep it simple. The easiest designs are sometimes the best designs. So I'm going to pause there. It looks like Bree put a link in the chat already. So high school, this is where we're going to take a break. High school coaches, this is where I'm saying goodbye to all of you. You're going to go to that link and join Randy. IQ, elementary and middle, you're going to stay with me. We'll get started, we'll say at 10:40, so we'll do a 2-minute break. Randy, if you want to give your coaches a longer break, that's fine. But I'm only going to give my guys the 2-minute break, so I'll put a timer on my clock here. Thank you, high school coaches, so much. I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for taking this on. You'll be in good hands with Randy and Bree. Randy just said 10:45. He wants a 7-minute break. I'm gonna go get some coffee and some more water. So we'll say at 10:40, we'll see the rest of IQ, elementary and middle school. Stay with me. VRC, go to the chat and join Randy. All right, thanks guys. Thanks high school coaches. We'll do 2 minutes. Boom. Oh boy. You want more coffee, babe? Hey, Joey. Hey, buddy. You've been a good boy. All right. Well, this should just be the elementary and middle school coaches. All high schools should be in Randy's room. Just to make sure you guys are all live, would you guys talk in the chat and just give me a 1-word describe your feelings right now? So I know that I have got a pulse out there. Excited. Hey, that's good. Ooh, look, everyone's excited. Eager. All right. Raised. Feeling good. Love it. Excited. All right, that's awesome. Chilled. Pat's just chilled. Pat's an existing IQ coach. And I'll introduce Pat really quick. Pat is Pat. Why don't tell me your city? I just know that you're south. Pat's south of here. If you want to be connected to Pat, he could put his email address. One thing that he likes to do is to join these training sessions to offer to anyone that needs help, support, either running events or coaching. Pat is a wonderful resource in Tell City. So yeah, if anyone, Pat, if you feel comfortable, if you want to put in the chat your email address, it's good to have a resource, guys, of experienced coaches in your community. So any of you that are in South or near the Tell City area, Pat is a great resource to lean on. So, all right, we're going to dive in. I'm going to try my best to get us right done at 12. Andrea, I agree. Pat is awesome. So I'm going to try to get us done at 12. I'm already 12 minutes behind the schedule because usually I'm supposed to be done at 10:30 there. This is my second run through of this activity, and I like to talk if you can't tell. So I went a little over. So I'm going to do my best to get done at 12. I want to respect all of your times and your summers because anyway. So all right, so we're going to cover 3 topics. One, the game. So I'm going to go over the game. I'm going to play a video of the game, and I'm going to go over the rules of the game so that you understand the game. And then there's a game manual that will go into even deeper about the game. The second I'm going to go over is what a competition looks like for those of you who've never been to a competition. And then the third, that's when we're going to go get that VEX IQ box that hopefully you got. If you don't have that box, that's okay. We'll still go through it, and you can still just kind of see what will be in the box. And then this is a recorded session, so you could always go back and unbox yours with me playing the video. So the reason why I showed this slide, because there's a major change to the game this year. So over the last 7 years, they've always used the same size field, which is an 8-foot by 4-foot field, white with black checkers, walls on the side. And then I've always told coaches, you buy that field, you can use that every single year. It's the game pieces that changes in the middle. So that's been true for the last 7 years, but this year's game, they actually widened the field by 2 feet. So now it's a 6-foot wide by 8 foot. You can still use your existing field. You're all new coaches, so most of you will not have a field, but the coaches can still use the existing field. They just have to widen it by 2 feet. So there's like a add-on kit for $100 that you can put 2 feet of section in the center and expand it. These fields are light, they're plastic. You can pick up and put it on the side of your room if you wanted. Ideally, if you can get a hold of an unused classroom in your school, like and call it the robot room, that's your ideal scenario where you can put that field and keep it permanently. You put your robots on a side shelf, all your parts somewhere, and kind of grow it as the robot room. You know, I mean, basketball teams get a basketball court, football teams get a football field, tracks get the track. Baseball gets you get the idea. You all should have your own room. I know that is not going to be true for all of you. So if you need to put the field in the corner of your classroom and then bring it back out during robot practice, that might be something you do. Some people use the media room, like library or something, to store it wherever you have space. You just have to think through that. So these are the different years that. The year I told you about the team of the robot from Boston, that was this one up here in the top right corner with the orange balls. They had to get it in that blue hopper. So anyway, but those games are done. This is the game this year. It's called Rise Above. So I'm going to attempt to play a video. We'll see how it works. Hopefully you guys, if you can't see it or view it, you could always just go to YouTube and search Rise Above VEX IQ Challenge. But I've done this once already, and it worked pretty well. Oops. Come on. I got to pause it. It's playing. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to have to unplug my headphones, and the audio will be a little goofy because it's really my computer speakers talking to the microphone. So, again, if you can't hear it, you can just go to YouTube and type Rise Above. But anyway, I'm going to hit play. And then I'm going to explain how the game works. So it's just a 2-minute video I'm going to play for you that goes over the game.
There are 3 ways to play VEX IQ Challenge Rise Above.
First, 2 teams will collaborate in 60-second teamwork challenge matches, working together to maximize their score. Both teams will receive the same points.
Each of these teams will consist of 2 drivers and 1 robot. One driver will operate the robot for the first half of the match, and the other driver will operate it for the second half.
Second, each team will have the opportunity to compete in the Driving Skills Challenge. In these matches, teams have 60 seconds of driver-controlled time to score as many points as possible.
Third, each team will also have the opportunity to play Programming Skills Challenge matches in which they have 60 seconds of autonomous robot operation to score points, no drivers allowed.
Scores from the driving and programming skills challenges will be combined to determine a Robot Skills Challenge champion.
VEX IQ Challenge Rise Above is played on the new, wider field, measuring 6 feet by 8 feet.
Robots and game objects start in the field in predetermined positions, and there are 9 goals located around the field.
Be sure to double-check the robot size rules this year, as they may not be the same as previous VEX IQ Challenge games.
The scoring objects are risers, with a height of approximately 8.75 inches and a width of approximately 7 inches. There are a total of 27 risers on the field.
The object of the game is to score as many points as possible with your alliance partner by scoring risers in goals and completing rows.
Each riser scored inside of a goal is worth 1 point. Each riser stacked on top is worth 1 additional point.
If teams score 3 risers of the same color in a row, they will have a completed row and will earn an additional 3 points.
If teams can stack 3 risers in the same goal, and that goal is part of a completed row, they will have a completed stack and will earn an additional 30 points.
Teams will have to experiment with different scoring configurations to figure out the most efficient way to score points.
For official game rules and robot requirements for VEX IQ Challenge.
All right. I'm plugging my headphone back in. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. I also try to make this this training as interactive as possible, because I can imagine just sitting there listening to me for 3 hours is not the most engaging and entertaining. So at least I get you to chat every once in a while. Okay, so I broke this down. It's kind of overwhelming the first time you see that video. The first section talked about the different format, which is teamwork challenge and skills challenge. We'll talk about that second. And then the next half talked about the way to score points. So I'm going to explain the way to score points right now. There's 4 ways to score points. I'm going to break down each of them, and then any questions you guys have, throw it in the chat. If you want, I might be able to unmute you if you wanted to ask a more in-depth question, so you can let me know, say unmute me or something. But let's start here. When I was saying if you literally can just drive and push, you can score points, and that is almost true every single year. So if you can drive and just push a riser into a blue square, you get 1 point. And there's 9 of those little spots, so you could drive around and basically get 9 points if you just drove and could steer and push these into those. One thing you can't notice is the blue outline is actually VEX IQ parts, and the blue section right here is actually a VEX part that's a ramp. So you can actually, if you square it up, push it up into that, where if you went at a corner, that's a flat edge, the corner piece. So you can't easily push it over that corner, but if you squared it up, you could slide it right around top. So that's 1 point. And if you got 1 in all of those, so for example, this third picture, that would actually be 1, 2, 3 points just for scoring in a goal. Let's move on to this next one. Riser stacked on top of a scored riser is 1 point. So if you stack another one on top of it already scored in a goal, that's a point. So that's 1 point now, that's 2 points. So 1 point for being in the goal, 1 point for being above. Okay, and then some things about that, it has to be parallel. It can't be on a side. So I'm going to show you a slide where it's actually kind of falls over or goes sideways. Has to be parallel to the ground. And then risers of the same color scored in a row, that is 3 points. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then you also have them in goals, so that's 4, 5, 6. And then in this example, you've got 3 risers stacked in a completed row. So this is called a completed row. This is called a completed stack. So they're all in the same row. So it's 1, 2, 3, and they have 1, 2, 3 stacked here. So I know this one's the really confusing one. I'm not going to say don't do this, but I'm telling you, for your first year team, trying to push all 3, stack 2, but not 2, but 3, that's hard to do. That's really hard to do for your first year. So in my opinion, something you might strive for your first year is push 3 in a row and just see if you can stack another one on here. Just stack one, because you'll also be paired with an alliance, a second robot during the teamwork challenge. Maybe you can rely on them to stack the third. So that's just something to think about as far as a strategy goes. But just counting points here, this would be 1, 2, 3, because that's 3 in a goal, plus 3, because you have a completed row, so that's 6, and then 7, 8, plus 30, that's 38 points. So that's how the scoring goes. Your kids are going to learn this very quickly, and they'll learn to literally score this very, excuse me, they'll be able to score on the fly in their head. They're like, all right, we're at 30, okay, now we're at 45. Like, they're going to calculate and add. They're going to learn how to add math quickly. If you have a completed stack not in a completed row, is that 3 points? Well, it would be 1 point, 2 point. Yes. So in this example right here, if you have a completed stack, not yes. If there was a third one, that would just be 3 points. To Andrea's question. Yep. The bonuses start coming in when you can get those 3 in a row. Because on this next slide, oops, I revealed an answer. How much time do you have to score points in the chat? You have, how long is a round? One minute. 1 minute. You got it. It's 1 minute long. How many seconds does the driver have to drive? How many, there's 30 seconds and there's 2 drivers. So they have 30 seconds and then they hand the remote over. And that's the other beauty behind this. And I'm going to show, let me pause there because I'm going to show you on the next slide right here is you have 2 robots during the teamwork challenge. We're just talking about teamwork challenge. We'll move to skills here in a second, but teamwork challenge, it's 2 robots. This would be your robot, for example, the one on the left, and these are your kids. So there'll be 2 kids for the 1 robot. And you can see this girl, she has the remote. She'll be called maybe the starter driver, and she goes and maybe pushes the, let's say her plan is to push the orange in the goals. She pushes 1, 2, 3, and then he is the closer driver, the closer. He stacks perhaps. So stacks perhaps, that rhymes. So he maybe comes over here and puts this orange on top of this, and then this orange on top of that, and makes a completed row. Even though I just told you maybe don't go for completed stacks your first year, but it's just an example. Maybe that is their strategy. And then people ask, well, can you talk to this team? Yes, you can strategize and talk. The whole idea is now you have to communicate with another school from another team, not even knowing what the robot might be capable of doing. You need to strategize so in that 1 minute you have a game plan. So that's the other really neat, unique thing about robotics is you have to come up with the strategy with another team. And every match you're paired up randomly with a different team. Usually you're the team that sucks in your first year, but sometimes you'll be paired up with a team that's really good and scores a lot of points, or sometimes you'll be with a team that is not good and maybe they forgot to plug in their battery and it doesn't even move. So that's something to think about as well. Some other little tiny rules that you don't need to know all of them right now just to get started, but a couple other easy rules. If your robot gets stuck, your kids can put the remote down, go pick up the robot and put it back to start. So that's a nice thing that they can do. And you get 8 matches in a competition. So one in a traditional competition. They've been talking about having just 1 driver. Some schools are saying we can't have 2 kids competing. Some schools might only have 1 driver. They've talked about. They've also talked about moving the driver stations on the left side and right side to separate you from 8 feet. Usually these people are standing right next to each other, so put them on opposite sides or put them in opposite corners. Some coaches are saying, well, I don't want my kids touching the remote or sharing the remote. A different team each match. So Dan, if you're asking if you're robot A, your second robot will always be a different team. But if you're also asking, should you have different drivers or different students, that's up to you. My first year, first competition, I would say let anyone that wants to drive. Once you get more competitive after maybe your first year, so your second or third year, I would have designated drivers. That didn't sound right. In the robot world, designated drivers that are assigned to I'm the opener, I'm the closer, and these two always work well together. So like a Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski kind of thing. As much as I don't like the Patriots, but you know Tom Brady works really well with Rob Gronkowski. That's why they're playing for the Bucs together now. That's how your drivers should work together. So you should kind of pair up Susie's eyes with Sally and Jimmy's eye with Johnny, or whatever it might be. And then Jimmy's always the starter and Johnny's the closer. Any other questions you have? I have more slides here. I can go over more additional rules, for example, and just throw them in the chat if you guys have more questions as they come up. This is what a goal. It has to be in the inside perimeter where it says not scored. If you don't push it all the way in, that does not count. Okay. Ingrid, I will answer that because it's a two-part answer. So yes, are the risers in the position shown? Yes, that is the starting position. But for skills, and this is not in there because I just kind of learned about this, skills is in a different format. They've never done that before, but we'll talk about that in a second. So has to go in. I'm pointing to my screen and I realize you can't see where my finger's pointing, but maybe you can, but I'll do it with the mouse cursor. The riser has to fit inside the perimeter. It can't be on the lip like that. That does not count. It has to be fully inside the green area, as shown here. And for a completed stack or for a three, this has to all be in the same row, but to have three, they need to be like this. They cannot be sideways like this. So this would be 2 points, not 3. This would be 3 points. And then for a completed stacked work, it has to be a completed row, so all the same color and all the same 1, 2, 3 stacked up. Where in this example, purple's in the middle, not a completed stack. Not a completed row, so therefore not a completed stack. And this is a completed row, but it's not a completed stack because you have a teal one, not an orange one. Okay. Let me show you another thing is you can go in any configuration like tic-tac-toe, so horizontal, vertical, diagonal. However, does anyone see a problem with going diagonal? If I was, let me show you this. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces. What would a potential problem be if you did 1, 2, 3 orange, and then you stacked them, 4, 5? What would be your potential problem going diagonal? That might be a dumb question, but can the other team knock them over? You can only get, there you go. Andrea said you can only get one completed row. So diagonal's an option, but it's not a good option because now you can't go, for example, orange, purple, teal. You can't get multiple rows. You can only get one going diagonal. So Andrea, she is on the ball. Becky, this might be a dumb question, but can the other team knock them over, or are we not against each other? No, that's a good question, Becky. This is just such a weird part of robotics for IQ, is that other robot on the field, that's your alliance partner, not your opponent. So I'll go over scoring here in a little bit, but basically you're working together, you're collaborating together. So yes, they could knock it over, but you don't want that to happen. They could do it by mistake, and you're just gonna have to roll with the punches and be like, you know what? You will probably be the team making the mistakes. We'll just say that out of the gate. So we have to make sure that they are, you're being respectful. But you need to make sure that you understand that they are your partners. That's why you're an alliance. So it's weird because in matches, you want to be successful with the other team, but in an overall competition, you want to score more points than the other team. So it's a weird dynamic. All right, I need to kind of start moving forward. Any other questions about scoring? Sorry. There's a 30-page manual that goes over all the rules that your kids can dive into. And no, so it's not really on your responsibility. You don't need to do all of it. You don't need to know all of it, is what I'm saying, your first year. And then I said there's a video Jake Simons goes over. He was a first-year coach just like you. Here is the advanced coaches training. I can actually just put this in the chat. I don't want you to be watching this right now. But this very first one says game rules and strategy. Jake goes over that entire manual. It's a 50-minute long video. You can look at this later. He goes over the entire manual and his strategy. He even talks about the diagonal thing. I picked that up from him, and Andrea picked it up without even me thinking, unless Andrea, you watched that already and you knew, or you figured it out on your own. You might be really sharp. I'm going to say you figured it out on your own. I didn't figure it out my first year. I didn't think, or first time looking at this game. In each of the 8 matches, will you be with a different school or will your alliance be the same? It's random order. And I'm going to talk about that soon, but you'll most likely be with a different team. Andrea's going to be the competitive one. We got to watch out for Andrea. She's really learning this. I'm sharp. You go, Andrea. I like it. All right. So this is to kind of explain, I said, when you go to your first competition, it's kind of overwhelming. There's a lot going on. So I'm going to explain what you're going to see. I'll do my best to kind of predict what it's going to look like for this year, but I just don't know. I'm going to tell you right now, I predict there's some of you won't even be able to form a team this year. There's a lot of school districts that are already saying no athletic events, no clubs. You know, I understand their position, and I respect that. So we're just going to have to be prepared for that. But some of you will get to go to a competition. So here's what you'll see at your competition. We'll just say this. All of you sometime in the world will be able to coach at a competition. Might not be this year, but hopefully the following year. Here's what you see. It's typically there's going to be, we'll say, 2 areas. There's the pits and the competition area. So if you were to divide this room right down the center, the left side's the pits and the right side's the competition area. In a typical elementary and middle school environment, that is, pits are usually in the cafeteria and the gymnasium is the competition. As I said, hectic, this picture on the bottom right, that is why they will not look like a normal competition this year, is because that's what a normal competition looks like. That is a germ nightmare. It's already a germ nightmare. You remove coronavirus out of here. So they will look different. You probably won't have spectators in the audience. I'm just guessing. You probably won't have multiple kids being able to go back here, and it might just be your 2 drivers or 1 driver. So that's just to kind of illustrate, it's a close proximity sport. No, Ingrid, just elementary against elementary, middle against middle. It's a good question. These are all good questions, and that's why I need you guys to ask them, because I forget to include some things. So in the cafeteria, you're going to have tables set up, or it might just be some gymnasiums are so big they do the pits and the competition in the same gym. Every school is a little different, but your pit area is your home base throughout the day. It's where you'll put your charging station to charge battery between matches. That battery, I get this question a lot, that battery should last probably 4 matches, then you're probably going to have to put it on a charger. Some batteries last, I've had some coaches tell me they've never charged their batteries between matches or during a competition. I like to keep that thing toasty at 100% at every match, because the lower the depletion of the battery is, the less power going to those motors, and the less power means the slower it goes. So that's kind of your home base. That's where you'll keep your parts. Think of NASCAR. You race around the track, you go to the pits to fix a flat tire or replace parts that broke or damaged. That's what you'll do in the pits. Between matches, you have 8 matches. Between matches, you'll go back to the pits and fix things. You'll have a practice field there. You don't need to bring your own. So you can bring maybe a couple parts, like risers, to practice in the pits on your table, but they should have a practice field for you to drive around and test it out. You might even have the opportunity to test out with your upcoming alliance. So you do a practice run for a minute to see what the actual match will look like. All right, kids carry the robot to their match. They'll have probably a check-in area. So you can see behind here some tables. If you look in the top right screen, there's some tables. That's probably the queuing area. So they would probably come here and say, what team are you? All right, you're on match 4, or you're going to be match 4 on field 2. Great. Go stand at this table, and then when they're ready, they'll call you up and you'll go to field 1, 2. Put your robot down. They'll say, on your mark, get set, go. And then there'll be a little timer. You can see here's a little timer where your kids can see how much time they have left. They run their match, and then the referee counts the points, and then you pick up your robot and off you go to the pits, and you'll do that 8 times. If you're lucky, you'll get into the finals and you'll get to do 1 round. Finals, there's 1 round, and it's whoever does the best in the finals, and that is your winner. And the weird thing about robotics is the winner, there's 2 teams that win because it's an alliance. So when you win the state championship, you actually share that title with another team. So anyway, that's the pits. That's kind of the competition area. You might have 2 fields. In this example, there's 4 fields. Heritage Christian puts on big events. They have 6 to 8 fields sometimes. At the state championship, I'm just bragging here, at Lucas Oil, we have 20 fields of competition. We have 5 stages of 4 fields each. Bleachers is for spectators and fans, and they get to watch the matches. You get to watch 8 matches, and if you're lucky, a 9th for the finals. Skills, we'll talk about skills later, but there's typically a separate skills field. That's what you'll see at a competition. Why it'll look different, I already kind of mentioned, maybe no spectators. They're even saying there might be skills only events where you just show up, your robot, the field, you run it, and then you leave. You run it, they score it, and then you leave, and that's it. So no teamwork driving with another school, no spectators, anything like that. Just bring your robot, you do your run, off you go. He even talked about doing virtual skills, which they don't know how that's going to work, where you do a web live cast for those kids that might have a field in their house, and you can do a live cast of the robot running on the field in your house. And we're like, we don't know how to inspect that. We don't know how to score that accurately like that. But they're trying to think creatively. Okay, so someone asked, is average time for a competition? I'll go over that. It's about 8 to 3 o'clock on Saturdays. So it's kind of a full day Saturday. Here's an example of a match list. We're going to pretend we're team 2D. Each of you guys got a match. There are weekday competitions in the form of leagues that are after school, typically for a and leagues are a whole nother story. It's going to be unique this year with leagues. So to answer your question, Don, I would kind of wait until the events start getting published to take a look, but there will be some options for competitions during weekdays. All right, so let's say we're team 2222D. Each of you got your own unique number. That's your team number. They'll stay with you for the rest of the year. And in fact, that'll be your team number for your school for the rest of its entirety of years. So I usually tell coaches, highlight your team. So I'm going to highlight my team. Ooh, look at that graphic. You highlight your team, and that tells me, all right, I'm on qualifying match 3, field 3 at 9:02. So at 9:02, probably at 8:55, I should make sure my kids are queued up and ready in line. You don't go with them. You tell your 2 drivers, take your robot, queue up in line. They go to the match. You might tell them, hey, you're in match 5 after 3. So right after 5, you need to go back in line right away. But now we have a gap here. And this is not a typical match schedule. I just did this so you can see multiple on one page. But typically there's like a 20 to 40 minute gap between matches. So that gives you time to maybe go to the practice field, maybe go to a skills match, maybe go back to the pits and let the kids wolf down some granola bars, whatever it might be. And then you go through 8 matches, and then they rank based on your 8 matches. Oh, I didn't say this. They throw away the 2 lowest scores. They throw away the lowest score for every 4 matches. So out of 8 matches, they'll throw the 2 lowest scores away, meaning you'll have 6 recorded scores. So if your kids have a terrible match, you can say, oh, you know what? They'll throw that score away. The computer does it automatically. You can only tell your kids that 2 times. You can't tell them after a 3rd terrible match, they'll throw that score away, because eventually they have to start counting. That's my joke I retell every year. I don't know if any of you laughed at it, but I think it's funny. All right. I'm going to go to a match schedule here in a second, but the difference between teamwork challenge and skills, in a typical year, teamwork challenge is 2 robots, 2 sets of drivers, so that's 4. 2 drivers from one robot, 2 drivers for the other, and you get 8 matches. They throw away the 2 lowest. That's kind of everything I just described. That's what teamwork challenge is. Everyone at a competition will do teamwork challenge in a normal year. Skills challenge is your robot against the clock all by itself, and you get 3 driving opportunities and 3 programming opportunities. So what I mean by driver is your 2 drivers driving the robot all by itself, 1 minute, score as many points as you can. And programming is you pre-program the robot to go and to complete a task, and how many points can they get in 1 minute with not touching the remote. So that's a lot more challenging. And your skill score is the driver plus the programming. So that's why it's important to try to do programming. And again, as I said, you can just have it drive forward and push a thing into the goal, and you can get a point. So I suggest you try a skills challenge. I think there are going to be some events that are only skills only. So like I said, you just go and you do your 3 driver, your 3 programming, and you leave. You're done. You don't have to stick around. It would probably be a 20-minute thing. You'd walk in, you'd probably register, I'm team 4445, and they'd have to inspect your robot, which you could do without any human contact. You put your robot down, your kids walk away from the table, the adult inspects it, and then the kids take it to the field. They do their 6 runs, 3 driver, 3 programming. Maybe you don't even do programming, just 3 driver runs, and then that score is entered into the system, and that's your score. That might be what some of you will have to do this year. Okay. There's something else I wanted to bring up, but I can't think of what it was. So what questions do you guys have about what I just said? Any questions about driver or skills? Do you have 3 drivers or 1 driver runs 3 times? It's up to you, Andrea, however you want to do the drivers. Between skills matches, you could rotate drivers if you'd like. Between teamwork challenge, you can rotate those drivers however you'd like. But the 2 that start the match have to be the 2 that finish. So the 2 drivers that show up, do the first 30 seconds, and they hand over the remote to the second driver. Those are just 2 drivers. Your second skills or second match, you can rotate. Can you Lysol these parts? Yeah, you can. They're coming up with ways to try to disinfect the fields and things like that. These are pretty durable parts. Yeah. Is the playing field the same for teamwork versus skills? Thank you, Dan. That is not. Typically, every single year, it is. This is the first year it is not, which I did not realize until I watched that advanced coaches training. I'm going to go and show you. This is definitely going to put us over, guys. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to go to REC's website. I'll show you the manual, and I'm going to show you the layout for skills. I should probably add it to this training, but you're my last training in the summer, so thanks for bearing with me. Great question. So we're going to go, right, I'm on REC's website. I went to VEX IQ, and I'm right here. It says current challenge, and you just scroll down here, and then it'll say game manual. No, it says game resources and then game manual. There we go. All right, sorry, I should have had this prepared, but I literally just learned this on Tuesday and kind of forgot to prep this. So this is the normal configuration. In my mind, it is an absolute mess of parts. Like they made the field bigger, but then they made the game pieces bigger and they clustered them everywhere. So I think it's kind of a mess of parts. Like I don't even know how people are going to be able to reset these fields and remember where everything goes. But here's how skills looks like. There's the positive. So when I was saying you can just literally your robot's going to be right here, you can just drive forward and push something in, or drive forward and turn and push something in. Like you could easily, or just rotate. You could push this purple one in. You're already lined up. You just rotate it to the left, drive forward, push it in, and then you're allowed to pick it up in skills in that minute. So after it pushes it, as long as it's not touching the piece, you can put it on this side. Use the same program, push it there, boom, you got 2 points. I literally just wrote a program that says drive forward, and these squares are I'll even write the program for you. Look at this. These squares are 12 inches. Drive forward for, we'll probably say 16 inches, and then put in reverse. That's it. That's your program. 2 lines of code. Drive forward for 16 inches, back up 4 inches or something, so it's not touching it. That's it. Any other questions? You guys all have good questions. You probably have asked the most questions that anyone has asked. I love it that you guys are thinking. Any other questions? All right, I'm moving on. I already revealed the answers, but this is to show you the typical layout of a teamwork challenge. So the one on the left is teamwork challenge. I usually say, what's the left? What's the right? That's teamwork challenge because it's 2 teams, 2 robots. The one on the right is skills challenge because it's 2 kids from the same team, 1 robot. So teamwork challenge, skills challenge. Here's a sample competition just to show you the scoring. I already mentioned it, and someone asked, like, if your team won through this, the very first match we have, if we're paired with team 2 and we get 20 points, you get 20 points and team 2 gets 20 points. And the next match, you're with team 3, you got 30 points, So you got 30 points and team 3 got 30 points. So in total, we got 20 plus 30. We have 50 points. You'll do that 8 times. So sometimes you'll be with a good team, sometimes you'll be with a bad team. All right, and then someone asked, what does a typical calendar or schedule look like? This is a typical teamwork event. This is not a typical skills event. They've never allowed skills only events, ever. So this is going to be new for this year. So that will look different. And like I said, I bet it'll be like a 30-minute thing where you just come in, register, get inspected, do your 6, and you're out. Here's the typical agenda. You check in, you get your robot inspected. I'm going to show you what that means. And then you have opening ceremonies, drivers and coaches meeting. Your teamwork challenge is usually 10:30 to noon. You have an hour of lunch, and then your teamwork challenges resume, and you have finals, and you're out of there by 3:30. So with less teams, it'll take less time. So this is an example of like probably a 24 team. If they go down, they're saying they might even allow like 10 to 12 team events. If they went down to that, you could probably get done, honestly, in my opinion, like 2 or 3 hours. Like it could be a really short, quick event. And I think that's what we obviously want to do ultimately, is reduce the amount of, human inside contact that we have. We don't really have a lot of time for this. Do you guys want to see the video? Yes, Rise Above is for the entire year. Ingrid, you guys said sure. You're a little reluctant. I understand. I'm going to just go ahead and play the video. We might go over a little bit, but I don't know. This is worth it. This is a video. I'm going to prep it.
Elementary school, the Hubble division, a team from...
All right. So really quick, I'm going to go quick. Last year at the World Championship, 12 teams made it to the finals. There were like 300 teams in this division, in the elementary division. 12 teams made it to the finals. Team 1 through 10 are from China. Team 11 is from Napanee, Indiana. Team 12 is from Napanee, Indiana. Never happened before that 2 teams from the same school make it to the final stage. So this is their finals match to win the World Championship, and their alliance partner from China is going to make a critical mistake that ruins their chances of winning. And watch what happens at the very end. Watch what the girl does when she literally found out that the alliance partner just screwed it all up for him.
From Beijing and a team from Indiana on the Toyota field. Stephanie, tell us about these teams.
All right, thank you, Paul. I'm here on Toyota with the Hubble division. 5, 2, 9, 4B, Eagle Box Blue. They're from Napanee. In go!
There you go. I just fast forward.
All right, these kids are pro. They're calm, cool, and collected over here. Their lights mean nothing to them. They're just focused on their robots. We are 10 seconds into this match. They've dragged a bunch of hubs over from the other side of the field. We're currently standing with 6 low-scored hubs, 1 high-scored hub, and 1 high-scored bonus hub. 36 seconds left in this match. The remaining hubs have made their way from the other side of the field over to the field zone. Science Museum 2 adds an additional 2 low-scoring
Here's
hubs.
where the critical mistake's about to happen.
Left in this match. The bonus hub is still on the structure. We'll have to see if they go back to get it later. 17 seconds left in this match. The bonus hub has been knocked off of the structure. We have 10 seconds left. Let's see if they have enough time. Our pyramid gets knocked over.
Now they have
6
to hang
seconds
on
left in
this
this
bar,
match. It looks like our robots are going to go to hang. We have one connected. We have run out of time.
So right there, what did the girl do when she just realized that the other team ruined their chances of winning the World Championship? Anyone in the chat? What happened? High five. There we go. I call it the high five heard around the world. This coach, his name's Jake Simons. He's the one that made that video of the game strategy I shared with you. He was really disappointed. He texted me, during the competition when this happened. He's like, "Oh man, bummer for the blue team. The alliance partner made a critical error. We probably could have won. They've scored more points than any other alliance prior to this." So if everything went as planned, they would have won the world championship. They have a red team and blue team. Blue team scores more points than the red team. And right after this, right when the girl realized that they lost, and I hate to say it because of the other team, but it's true. They lost because of the other team made a mistake. She leans over and high fives them and says, thank you, like, good job. And I mean, that's just something that you cannot, you could not ask for any better of a result. And I show this just as another reiteration of this is what makes me proud, not if they won or lost at the World Championship, but that they had what we call gracious professionalism. They leaned over and she high fives them and says, good job. You know what? We did our best. Mistakes happen. I understand that. We don't live in a perfect world. These robots are controlled by humans. Humans make mistakes. And even electronics and technology sometimes don't go the way as planned. So the only thing I was going to show you is this is kind of the scoreboard of all of the teams down here. China, Eaglebots, Napanee, Indiana, China, Eaglebots, Napanee, Indiana, China, like all, it's just kind of, it was just a very interesting to see all the Napanee teams, being represented. So anyway, I like to just show that story of just showing like why we do this. That's what I take pride in, is seeing. When I was interviewed for the president and CEO position, they asked, what is your proudest accomplishment in your current position? And some obvious things would be, hey, we brought the state championship to Lucas Oil Stadium, or Indiana, because of our efforts, Indiana has more robotics teams than any other state in the entire country. And I brought up that story right there. The high five is my example, because I feel like all of our efforts in these training sessions to get coaches to like really preach and teach the things that we want, and showing the importance of gracious professionalism, or as Aaron said, sportsmanship, and Andrea said as well, like that is why we do this. So just think about those videos, think about those kids from Boston, like that is what I care about. I'll never ask you, hey, how many points did you guys score this year? And I'll never ask you, what did you guys rank at your first competition? I'll never ask you at Worlds, what do you guys currently rank? I don't follow it. I don't care about the scoring. I just care about your kids having a good experience and doing the right thing. All right, so I'm going to gloss over these quickly because I want to be getting our kits out by 11:30 so we can get done at 12. So 1 minute match, rotate at 30 seconds. We already went over that. One robot brain. You can use up to 6 motors, but your kit only comes with 4. We used to buy 6 for first year teams, but we took a survey at the end of the first year and said, how many motors did you use? And no one used more than 4. So we only bought you 4. Motors are only, I think, like $20 if you wanted to buy more, but that's a waste of money in my opinion for your first year. You do not need more than 4 motors your first year, in my opinion. All right, this is really important at a competition. Your robot has to fit in a 19 by 11 configuration, and it cannot be any bigger than 15 inches. But there's a typo in here, so this is a correction I need to tell you all. 11 by 19 by 15, but once the match starts, it can expand to any size. They've never done this before, and so I think it has to do with the field being larger now. So 11 by 19 by 15 is the start of the match, has to fit in an imaginary 11 by 19, 15 box. But then once the match starts, it can be in any size it wants. So that's just something to think about, okay? So when your kids are building, make sure it can, think of like a transformer, make sure it can fold into a 11 by 19 inch box. And that's what they'll do during inspection, is they'll put in an 11 by 15 by 19 inch box to make sure it fits in there. This is advice from coaches from last year. We asked the survey before the lockdown and before COVID, and asked them, what advice would you give any new coaches? Number 1 response, go to more than one competition. As I've already mentioned over and over again, that might be more of a challenge this year. And then how to sign up for a competition, I'm not going to walk you through that, but I made a video for you. It's on our robot resource page, and it's linked in this PowerPoint right here. You can go to that, or if you're on that YouTube page with the playlist I shared with you, you'll see it in there too. It'll show you how to sign up for a competition. It was already asked, I think I already mentioned, competitions typically cost up for IQ about $35, $30 to $35. All right, now it's the time for the kit of parts. In the chat, how many of you do not have your kit of parts? And again, this is okay. Bree shipped all of the last minute people. I do not have mine. That's okay. So I'm going to tell you a couple things. One, please follow along with me. That's fine. We'll be done in 30 minutes. We're not going to build anything right now. We're just going to open up the box. I'm going to show you some key components, and then we're going to peace out. We'll say goodbye. So follow along. Let me know if you have any questions, even if you don't have them. For those of you that do have your kit of parts, grab them. If you have it but you don't, it's not sitting next to you, that's okay. You can follow along with me. But grab your kit of parts right now, and I'll walk you through some of the main components. So this is the kit of parts that we bought each of you. It contains everything you need to build your first robot, but it doesn't have a lot of extra parts once you build your first robot. So the Rise bot, you can build everything. You can build the Rise bot, which is that basic bot I told you that plays this year's game, from the kit of parts. This is a $379 purchase on VEX. I tell you, if you have 12 to 15 kids that want to start a team, be on your robotics team, you should buy a second kit. And I told you, hopefully there'll be a Girl Power grant out there, so wait to buy that second kit so we get information hopefully in August about the Girl Power grant, because if that second team is 50% or more girls, we'll buy you that kit and pay for that team registration. So if you want to add a second team, registration for a second team is $100 plus the kit's $379. So if you do go to your principal and say, hey, I just went to training and I was told I need a second kit and a second registration and extra parts, and I need $1,000, you could tell them I told you that. I'm not telling you that you absolutely need to have that, but if your principal is supportive or your school board is supportive, get a second kit. There's a foundation kit for like $80 that contains all of the extra just parts and not electronics. That's a huge add-on. I'd buy a second battery. Those are $20 if I had the money. So anyway, but this is the kit of parts. They'll get you the basic bot. Like, you can build the basic bot with this. This is why we buy this for you. The extra parts you're gonna have to figure out how to get on your own. In fact, we even have training on how to fundraise for your team. All right, I'm gonna literally walk through this with you. I've got my kit of parts right here in a box next to my desk. You could probably hear the commotion. I'm gonna go through this with all of you. So there's a little tray here. I would suggest you print out this organization that I have. Print this out and tape it on either the cover of your box lid or on the shelf or cabinet that you're gonna store these, so that your kids know where the stuff goes. Otherwise, you'll never have it organized again. But that's my suggestion on keeping things organized. For those of you that do not have your kit of parts right now with me, something you could do is I actually made a video a long time ago that unboxes every single one of these parts, and it's like a 30-minute video, so it's equivalent to what I'm about to show you. So you could look at that video or you can look at this video. It does not matter. They're almost essentially the same. All right, inside your box, you'll see a box in a box. Looks like this. This is your expensive components. This is the money. This is really what that money is getting you, because everything else in there is everything else in this bag of parts. This is about $80 worth of parts. And this is about $300 worth of parts in this other box here. So that's why it's $380. So grab the remote right now. I want to show you a few things on the remote. So this remote is very similar to what kids are used to playing with. These joysticks are called potentiometers. So if you push up, all the way up on the robot or the remote, your robot's going to go fast. But if you don't push all the way up and you just push a little bit, it's going to go slower. And I usually tell as a coach, I tell students the first time you're driving, don't push all the way up and all the way back, because that robot's just going to go all over the place. Until you're a skilled driver, should you be going fast. So don't Ricky Bobbitt, is that it, from Talladega Nights? Don't Ricky Bobbitt all the way every time. Hard to see you as postage stamp. Oh, I got it. I'm sharing my screen. I'll toggle back before between full screen and not full screen. Good point. Thanks. Postage stamp. That's funny. All right. Other things about this. So let me take me off of shared screen. Good point. Can you guys see more full screen now? Lauren, can you see me full screen? I just see your video. Perfect. So in the middle, hold this button down. This is your on and off button. It probably already has a charge, just like buying a new cell phone, you have a little bit of a charge. And then another thing I want to show you is on the back end, this little blue thing. This is your radio. You do not ever want to pull this out. Leave this in. Don't let your kids pull this out. It's locked inside of here. And if I flip this over again, there's a little screw right here, which accesses a little door that has my battery inside here, like a cell phone battery. You do not need to unscrew this. You don't need to take this battery, but that clip to take this out is buried inside of here. So that's why I'm saying you don't ever want to pull this out, because you actually have to hold a clip down to safely pull this out. So leave this blue radio in here. This is a Bluetooth enabled radio, meaning you can use iPads to program these robots through these Bluetooth, which is pretty cool too. So anyway, that blue, and it's called a smart radio, will match up with a smart radio we have on our brain, which is the next thing. Go ahead and grab the brain, which looks like this. This is the expensive thing that we don't ever want our kids to drop, but they built these for kids. So you can drop them a few times, but not many. You can drop the remote a few times, but not like, I don't know, I'd say about 20 times to drop in this thing. You're probably going to start getting some loose parts in there, but it can definitely survive a few drops. There's actually, some kids do this. There's a little hook on the bottom of this. You can see that little round part right there. Kids put lanyards and they'll hang it around their neck as an idea, but then they have to take that off and hand it off to their driver during a match. And then grab the heavy battery. It's probably the heaviest device in that little box. I'm going to show you how to plug this into your brain, and then I'm going to show you how to turn on your brain and connect it to your remote control. Then we're going to hook it up to 2 motors. We're going to drive the 2 motors, and then we're done here. Okay. You'll see there's an open track and there's a closed track. So it's the opposite side of the radio is the open track. You can see the little slit here is open. That's the side you're going to slide the battery in. It also has the 2 ports. So we're going to take our battery, the metal prong facing the brain and up, and we're going to just slide it in the track just like this. And you're going to push it all the way until it clicks. And you can see now it's flush on the left and the right side. I feel like Vanna White right here, just like displaying everything. You can see my brain and the battery, my hand model of VEX IQ batteries. Lauren's not laughing. She's the only face I can see right now. Sorry, Lauren. I guess you're getting bored of my corny jokes. Dawn's laughing. Dawn, turn on a camera. Thanks, Dawn. All right, now we're going to turn on the brain. So once you got your battery in, hold down the check box. You'll hear a little noise. You'll see a green light right here. Mine's flashing, and the reason why it's flashing is because I also have my remote on still. And I'm going to zoom in here, and you can hopefully see the screen. Your screen should look like this. The little window, I'll use my pen to point. The little window right there, that indicates the brain battery. So mine's fully charged right out of the box. This, right there we go, right there. That cell phone tower indicates the strength of your radio signal. So if you move the remote further away, the signal will be small. You can drive this thing across the length of your classroom and it'll get good connection. If your remote is not turned on, this will be solid. So I'm going to turn my remote off right now. Oh, watch what happens. I turn my remote off, and it's connected, it turns my brain off. But I'm going to turn this on without the remote on, and you can see the cell phone tower in the corner. It's searching for a remote control, and you can see the green light is solid. So that's me turning it on without the remote turned on. If I turn on the remote, I'll put them side by side. Watch, the green light flashes, and they're flashing to say these two are paired together, and they're paired together with the smart radios. and they're already paired together. So if you were to buy a second robot kit, that brain and remote will only talk to one another, because you never want the remote controlling multiple brains. It would be funny at a competition if you can control your other team's radios or other team's robots, but that would not be fair if you're in the, you can imagine being in the stands watching a team compete and just start messing with them and pranking them by driving them in circles. What I would suggest if you buy 2 of these is to label this like brain 1 and this remote 1 or robot 1 or team A, however you want to do it, and then the other one is B, just so you don't get them mixed up. Worst case scenario is you show up to a competition with the wrong remote and you're standing in front of the field and it won't connect because you grabbed the other team's remote control. And that's kind of where that tether thing comes in, because even like in the queuing line, you might get your remote mixed up with your alliance partners, and now you have the wrong remote and you're driving your alliance partner's robot and they're driving yours or something like that. So anyway, and then as I already demonstrated, I'm going to hold down the middle button of the remote and it'll turn off my brain, or vice versa. If you turn off the brain, it'll turn off the remote, something like that. All right. You guys still with me? We good? All right, next thing I want you to do, I actually didn't check to see if you were good or not. I was just assuming you're good. Next thing I want you to do is there should be loosely in the packet, there should be a thing of, looks like telephone cables. So telephone cables here. Grab 2 of these puppies. I do not care the length, so just grab 2 random ones. 1, 2. And I've got little bread ties, untie them. We're turning you all into little robot engineers right now. So I've got 2 telephone cables. I have an interesting story to tell you about telephone cables. And then plug it into, you can see on the very top of your brain, it's got numbers that represent the ports. So we're going to plug it into port 1 and the second telephone cable into port 6. So it should look like this, 1 and 6. Here's my funny telephone story that I had to learn this from coaches. Most students, most of us, do not have a landline telephone anymore. And a lot of kids never did. So they don't know how these work. So, meaning they don't know that you have to push this down to pull it out. So kids like to just pull on this and they just rip it out. So you actually have to teach kids to, if they want to remove it, they have to push that little prong to take it out of a port. So anyway, these ports are going to connect your motors or your sensors, and already pre-programmed, this brick has what's called, when you turn it on, you saw it, it has what's called driver control right there. That's a pre-program that's basically going to tell port 1 can control a motor and port 6 can control a motor, and that's why I had you plug these into 1 and 6. All right, in your expensive box, there's 4 motors. Just grab 2 of them. They don't say motor, but they look like this. They have a connection right here. And then I'm going to show you about this little output shaft. That is going to be your output shaft for your motor. So there's 4 of these. They're about, I think, $20 a piece if you wanted to buy. Like I said, you could buy 2 more if you wanted. And you're just going to plug that into, I like to do this when the brain is turned off. So hold down the X, turn it off. I like to do this when it's turned off. Go ahead and plug one end to one battery, or one end to one motor, and the second one to the second motor. And it should look like this now. And now we're going to get to fake drive our robot. So what I'm simulating, if you can use your imagination, is this is going to represent the left drive motor on a, we'll say, robot. And this will be the right motor on a robot. And if you put them in opposing directions like this, this would be your left wheel and this would be your right wheel. And if you had a frame and some wheels, you could drive around and go, forward, left, right, backwards. Okay, so that's kind of what, if you use your imagination, that's what we're doing. Okay, so we got our motors on. I'm going to turn on my brain, so turn on your brain with me. Your brain should have been on all morning. My wife just looked at me and gave me a bad look. She rolled her eyes. Lauren gave me a thumbs down. Now my wife's laughing at Lauren's thumbs down. Hold on your remote. Make sure we've got flashing lights. All right, we're connected. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to now enter driver control, or our program. So the way we do that, and then wait till the contrast. Okay, the way we do that is you want to hit the check box. I have to make sure I hit the check box that's on this side. So we're in driver control. We're going to hit the check box so it says run. And then we're going to hit the check box one more time so you get this screen right here. If you get in the wrong screen, you can always hit the X to back up. But you can see right now it says it's running, and there's a little timer there. This is telling me right now that I can control my motors. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I'll put the motors up to my microphone, which is around my neck. Lauren, can you hear that? No. I'm gonna like shove it in the microphone to get the idea. I made that up. There you go. All right. There you go. Thanks. And so if you move the joysticks right here up and down, it's controlling the motors. If you also notice, I usually ask questions if anyone wants to tell me, up, down, left, right, what makes those move, but we're kind of running out of time. If I go left or right, it doesn't do anything. It's actually up and down, because this is called a tank tread, and I'll show you a screen of what I mean. Meaning the left side operates the left motor, the right side operates the right motor. And you think of like a tank, left side track, right side track. If I want to go forward, I would put both of them up. If I want to go down, both of them down. If I want to go left, I got to think about this. Right one goes up and left one goes down. And that's the way I can go circles, or I can go in circles. So for those of you that are at home, if you didn't look, this is what's moving. It's that output shaft. You can see, and I'll go slow so you can see it going slowly. And for those of you that do not have in front of you, that is the output shaft of the motor. And I'm going to teach you guys all, I'm going to make you all look like geniuses to your kids, because the most common problem that happens, and for those of you that are at home, you don't need to do this for me. Let me grab an axle really quick. I'm going to hook it up to just a gear to simulate a wheel. You know what? I don't even have to simulate it. There's a wheel right here. Let me grab a wheel. Okay. All right. I'm taking an axle. I'm putting it on a wheel. I'm going to put this axle in the motor, output shaft. You guys don't have to do this alongside me. You guys can just watch. All right. You guys see a spinning wheel, right? So, most common problem we run into with our kids, and this is going to make you sound like a genius, even though I told you I want your kids to figure this out, but this is when they're on the verge of tears of figuring out, my robot doesn't work, the motor's broken. This is where you can look like a genius. Once you get this axle and everything built inside your robot, your kids are going to be driving around, and you're going to get to the point where, and this looks so obvious when I just have two parts, an axle and a wheel, but when this is spinning, and I do that, okay, it's not connected. This is a stupid question, I know, but the motor's still spinning right now, but my wheel's not spinning. And I would ask you why, and you know why. It's because this is not connected, meaning this axle is not in that square little hole. It's kind of hard to get in there. It's not in there. And I'm sorry, I've got like a sun shining, and I'm trying to get this all to work out, and right there, that pops out all the time on our wheel design. And there's a video, as I told you in the advanced training, about building a robot, and he addresses and talks about fixing that problem. Where you can sound like a genius once you give your kids enough time to worry about it is if they're driving and the robot does not move anymore, or it's just going in circles, meaning only one side of the wheels are working, but the right side or left side's not working. What happened 99% of the time is this axle just came out and not engaged. So your genius answer is push the axle in on the side that the wheels aren't spinning. and they're going to push it in, and it's going to work, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, Miss Avery, you're the smartest person in the world. How did you know that? And it's because the axle becomes unengaged all the time. So that's kind of it for this demonstration. I only have 13 minutes, so I'm going to fast forward and put the screens back on. Oh, I see there's some questions. I'm really sorry I didn't monitor the chat. My left side working, Vanna. My left side doesn't work. Dawn, did you figure it out or no? Okay, a couple things I would do. Make sure you turn off the brain. Make sure this is pushed in all the way on both sides. Make sure you're pushing on both sides of the joystick, not just one. You need to push on. Oh, and for those of you who didn't figure out, the left side is port 1 and the right side is port 6. So make sure, Don, you're pushing on the left side to get the 1 operating. You got to put, and it's up and down. Left and right doesn't do anything. It has to be up and down. Still nothing? There's a possibility your motor doesn't work, but I would test out those other options first. So turn it off, turn it back on. Make sure that the cell phone connection or the telephone connection is pushed in very, very firmly on both sides of the motor. The motor is pushed all the way in and the brain is pushed all the way in. And then make sure you're hitting the left and right joystick only up and down, not sideways. I'm pushing sideways, it's not rotating, it's up and down. All right, Dawn, thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs down. So the second thing is turn it off, try another motor, and that's going to tell us if it's a motor problem or a port 1 problem. Make sure you're plugged in on port 1 too. And then Dawn, I'm going to move forward, but we can stay on longer. You and I, we can solve this problem together. But I think it's a good exercise to like still everyone hear the thoughts of what I would go through to solve these problems. So, but in the respect of everyone's time, trying to get done 12 minutes, and also being competitive because I wanted to make sure Randy doesn't go over because he likes to talk as much as I do. Last time he got done before I did. Oh, and Bree just texted me, all done. So Randy already beat me. Danielle just laughed at me that Randy beat me. So anyway, okay, so I already went over that. This is what I went over to get into run mode, which is holding down the green checkbox. It's not green, but in this illustration, hold down the green, hold down the checkbox to go to turn it on. It shows this screen, driver control. You hit the X again to get it to run. Hit it X. Keep saying X. I think I'm getting tired. I'm trying to rush. I'm sorry. Hit the checkbox to get to run. Hit the checkbox to get to running. And that is what we got to get the motor started. If you just turn it on and hit the joysticks, you will not be in run mode. You need to be in driver control run mode in order to get them to move. These are the smart radios. These are black. They come in gray and they come in blue. The new ones are all blue. Okay. And then this is the brain robot battery brain battery I showed you. This is the little one that's inside the controller like this. You'll never need to see that. You never need to take it out. You need a screwdriver like I told you. But in order to charge the brain, there's a charger. You'll have to look at the little stamp picture. There's a charger in the bag for your brain battery. This will need to be charged more often, as in every couple hours, you'll probably have to charge it to keep it at 100%. But these remote chargers, I'm telling you, you could probably go to 2 or 3 competitions before you have to charge these. These things are pretty powerful. They don't use as much power as the brain. The brains drive the motors and do a lot of work. But there is not a there's not a charger. You'll need to grab a cell phone charger for this. The cable is in the box, but not a charger. So you need to use a cell phone charger or a computer to charge these. I know this is my also ongoing joke, but it's real. The computer has to be turned on in order to charge this. This is a common problem. I've got it plugged in my computer, but it's not charging. Is your computer plugged in and turned on? No. Okay, this needs to be on in order to charge it. Anyway, I already went over the smart cables. This is what you'll plug into your motors, and the instructions when you build these will tell you that. There's different lengths. This is the smart motor. When you get into programming, the nice thing is you can measure by degrees and rotation. That's why it's a smart motor. So you can say rotate 360 degrees or rotate in inches, which is also nice. These are your bricks. I'm just going to show this to you. You don't need to do this. I already have one out, but maybe you want to build and practice with this. I'm going to turn off the screen so that you guys can see this. These are your snap together. I'm going to try to block the sun. These are your snap together kind of Lego parts, the VEX IQ parts. They're called beams. And then that little rivet thing I was telling you about, it looks like this. They're blue. So this is what's going to hold things together. But when you snap and put something in, it's really hard to get out. That's a good thing for parts because I'll drop this from my up high. It's still together. That's the good thing. If that was Legos, it'd fall apart. This is not an infomercial for Legos or VEX parts. Nice thing is it rotates freely unless I put another pin in there or another rivet to hold it. You can disconnect it pretty easily, but like I said, you can't take it out. So this is why I was going to show you. In order to take this out, the easiest thing to do is you can see there's like a little groove in the center. What I do is I flip it over to the back side and put my nail perpendicular to that groove. So I just push it right like that on the back end. You can see it's kind of divoted a little. I don't know if you can see that or not. But then you can go on the other side. You can see, and I can just pull it out. If you I don't know if anyone's strong enough. I mean, Hulk Hogan couldn't do this, to try to pull this out with just your 2 fingers, unless you have some really good nails or something. So you need to push on the back end and pull it out. So anyway, that's a frustrating thing. It's actually at the very first page of the instructions, but a lot of people just skip over that part. Another thing you could do if you don't have good nails or nails to do it, you could take another piece and just push on the back end like this and then pull it out. So anyway, that's something that you could do as well. All right. If a kid drops the controller, which will happen? Make sure you push the transmitter back down to the controller. Yep. So Pat was saying if you drop it, the radio could come loose, and all you have to do is just push this up into it, like shove it in if you drop it and this thing comes loose. You would know that this isn't connected because if you try to connect this to the brain and it's not flashing, or the cell phone towers are searching, you know it's not connected. Just shove the radios back in on both sides. All right, I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. We are almost done, I promise. So these are the beams that I shared with you. These are the connectors that I shared with you. Dawn said we got kicked out. Yeah, let's talk about that, Dawn. I could probably mail you another one, or we can get VEX to mail you another one. Corner beams, great. I'm just showing you parts that are in your kit of parts. I do want to point out there's metal shafts. That's the example of what I pulled out. I would prefer metal shafts over plastic shafts. Even in the instructions, they tell you to use plastic shafts, but I think in the long run, you'll learn. These things are flexible, and if you have flexibility in your drivetrain, then you will not have consistency of driving. So you might want to look at the metal shafts. And then these plastic shafts have different versions. So this sounds inappropriate. The shaft on this is very smooth. This has a head on the end, and this has a head in the center. So there are variances of the different shafts. You just have, that one made Lauren laugh. Apparently we know where Lauren's humor is. But you just need to keep an eye out. It stings when you build and you're like, oh, there's a little stopper on the end of this one, where this one does not have a stopper. So just keep an eye that these have the variety of different axles. Just make sure you grab the right one. Gears have teeth, but that crown gear, that's this one right here. The crown gears, the teeth are rotated inwards. This is what those Boston kids use to convert 90-degree angle rotation. I need to go fast because I'm running out of time. Oh, pulleys, you'll probably never use. These do not have teeth. They have grooves with rubber bands. This is a bumper sensor. You'll probably never use any of the sensors, but this is to use to say I ran into something. This is something that you could do to touch. If you wanted to start your robot, you can turn it on by starting a program by touching it. This is a distance finder. It's called ultrasonic range finder. It'll tell you how far away you are from something. This is a gyro sensor. It can tell rotation, so it can tell the orientation your robot is if you wanted to turn perfectly 90 degrees, for example. This is a color sensor. It'll tell you what color something is. So again, first year coaches probably will never use any of these sensors. This is what I was sharing with you. By default, your robot is set up for tank mode, which is on the left. So going forward with both joysticks up to turn, one up, one down, go back, both down. Most good, it's the driver's preference. If they want to do one joystick to control, they want to do two joysticks. I prefer keeping it in tank mode. That's me. But some kids play video games and they want to do it all in one joystick. It's whatever the driver prefers. There's YouTube resources here if you want to click on the link to see additional resources that are available. And then inside your kit, you have two manuals. One is for a clawbot. I would almost throw this away in a way, and I would throw this away in a way. And why I say that is because this is not a useful robot for this year's game. I'll show you a link to the one that is. And this is a manual that goes over and covers all of the electronics and what does the red light flashing mean on your brain. And this is like the user manual. So hold on to the orange manual. These are, if you go to VEX's website, they've been actually working on the website, so you might not be able to find all these instructions, but eventually they'll be on there. These are all the various different things. Like you could build a VEX or T-Rex. This is not a useful robot to build for this year's game. But this Rise right here, which if I click on it, and I actually already have the link open, but I think that just also took me to it. Here, this will be faster. This Rise, oh, I don't know why it's so small. This, let's see if I can scroll over. Sorry, this is probably really small on your screen. I'm just going to go to the instructions. I don't know why it's so small. I wonder if this is, there we go. That's larger. There we go. So let me just go to like the first step. They're like Lego step-by-step Lego instructions, but they're a little bit more intricate because these pieces are, you know, this is 16 little holes long. So 3 holes over, you put in a connector. And then down 3 holes, you put a connector. And then there's the axle, and that's the axle that actually has a head on the end. So you have to make sure you get the right axle in there. So anyway, just these are instructions. And then the neat thing about this, if you guys want to build this at home, I think it's like step 20. Yeah, step 20, you have a working robot that drives around. It's more like a remote control car. And then that axle I was telling you about in this example is that middle axle is what's going to come disengaged from the robot, that you can tell your kids just push the axle further into that little output shaft. And maybe I can even show you in the step of the instructions. I don't know if you're going to see it. It's right here. It's step 19. You're putting the axle in that shaft there. I don't know if there's a better drawing of it. It's actually, it's right here. That doesn't really show it too well. I'm already over time. Sorry guys. But right here, you put this axle goes in, it's on the back end. It doesn't really show it. It connects to the motor output shaft. That's the part. That axle is what comes disengaged quite often. So anyway. All right, so that's the Rise robot. That's the one that I would suggest building this year. Get your kids to build. It might take 2 or 3 practices to go to. When I was saying don't start over, I'm saying don't start over past the drive base. So you could take the arm off or adjust or fix. But anyway, don't take down past the drive base. And holy cow, it's only 12:01. I only went 1 minute over. Dan, repeat manual for this year's Rise. Are you asking, do you want the link, Dan? Is that what you're asking for? It's the Rise manual. I'll put it right in the link. If that's what, I'm not sure what your question is. Yeah, there you go. So that is the manual for the Rise robot. And it's in my PowerPoint linked. If you go to the robot resource page, it's linked here. That's a hyperlink. And here, that's a hyperlink. So either one of those. That is all I have, guys. I just want to thank you all so much. I know I went over a lot of content in the 3-hour Friday morning of your summer. But I appreciate everything that you guys are doing as teachers. I really value you guys stepping up to become robotics coaches. Just know that this will be an odd year and we're all going to be going through it together. So we're here from the foundation to help support all of you. So if you have questions, you're freaking out, you don't know what to do, you're feeling alone, I just want you all to know that we're here to support you. Let's be flexible, let's be open-minded, let's help support our kids the best we can, let's have the best year we can, and hope we'll get back to normal where we can start having competitions and really thinking about the fun things. So all right, Aaron has a question, but I'll answer Aaron's question. But if anyone else has any questions, I'll stay on here for a little bit. Thank you all so much. Your robot kits, for those that didn't get it, should be coming in the next week or so. If you don't get it, email Robot Grant. But thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your summer. I'm going to stop recording, and then Aaron, I will not ignore your questions. So